but a habit. And we see that in our day-to-day life as well. We see quality in everything that we do. Look at the food that we eat. We shifted to organic, right? And the varieties because of our faith in the quality that we get. Look at the education system. We demand the best institute, and we actually work hard towards all the examinations and our admissions. Do you think people who get into the IITs or IIMs have gotten it through sheer luck? Actually, no, they have really struggled hard, and it is with their sheer hard and intelligent efforts with which they have been able to get into the IIMs. Look at the clothes that all of us are wearing, although just few of us are adding color today here, but irrespective, it's the quality that we have sought, right? So what is it when we demand quality in every aspect of our life, when we think quality every day, when we are called upon to execute and deliver quality, we find a gap? Friends, William A. Foster, an American Marine who received a Medal of Honor for his gallantry and endurance during World War II, said, "Quality is not an accident. It is always the result of high intention, execution, sincere effort, direction, and skillful work. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives and experience of many masters. Quality is everyone's responsibility." Namaste. I am Jyoti Agarwal, a partner with True and Fair Professionals Network, leading the advisory services of advising the audit firms to develop, implement, comply, and manage their standard of quality controls issued by ICAI and International Standard of Quality Management by IASB. And today, I am your moderator. With me, we have Mr. V. Balaji, who is the founding managing partner. Sir, you are not visible to others, so please, you'll have to raise your hands and smile. So we have V. Balaji, who is the founder, managing partner, and CEO of True and Fair. We have Jaydeep Trasi. Where is Jaydeep? So you have to see me so I get ensured, like, right, you've been there types. Who is the deputy managing partner, and he leads the learning and training vertical of True and Fair. Brinda Sri K. Brinda leads the technology initiative vertical at True and Fair. Alpaset, she is the monitor. She looks at the monitoring and remediation verticals, including the EQCR. Archana Ashok, oh God, they have just changed their seatings, right? So I can't even know where they're sitting. Archana Ashok leads the intellectual resources vertical. So all your audit methodologies, your guidances comes from her desk. We have Ashish Shivhare. Ashish leads the information technology audit, internal controls, and governance aspect at True and Fair. Kirti Kotian leads. Kirti, aapki Kirti chahiye. So Kirti Kotian leads and handles the audit documentation and archival tool and audit documentation content platform. We, very sweetly call them as ADAT and ADOC, respectively. And you'll hear me calling it as ADOC going forward. Rakesh Jain, I'm sure most of you have met him. Where is Rakesh? You have to say hi to them. Hi. So Rakesh is leading partner with business development. Shrishti Sarayan. Shrishti leads the data analytics verticals at True and Fair. So I and our team collectively take this opportunity to welcome all of you to our audit documentation content launch. Thank you for your enthusiasm to attend on a Saturday. Trust me, it is a Saturday, and I understand the importance of a Saturday. But again, on a true note, your enthusiasm, your positive energy enthuses us and firms up our belief that what we at True and Fair are doing is relevant and in the right direction. So thank you once again. Also, a very happy CA Day to all of you. We have entered the 75th year of our profession in India. And what a day to choose and launch audit documentation tool, a non-technology platform which will go a long way to help all the audit firms perform the quality audit. So without further ado, let me start with the launch program, and let's understand the agenda. Can we have the agenda, please? To start with, we will have Mr. B. Balaji talking or having his initial welcome address. Then this will be followed by the address from our two eminent speakers and the guests. We will then have panel discussion on audit quality, considering the expectations of the auditor in the current environment, followed by the presentation giving an overview of what ADOC is all about. That will be given by our deputy managing partner. And by way of our gratitude, we would like to recognize CA firms who have helped us in testing ADOC. And then finally, we will have a vote of thanks. So let's welcome Mr. V. Balaji, founder managing partner and CEO of True and Fair, for his initial welcome speech. Sir.
Thank you, Jyoti, for the wonderful introduction and setting the tone and context for this event. At the outset, again, I'll repeat, happy CA Day, 75 years, glorious years. We will make the 75th year completion a wonderful year for audit quality in India. That is our endeavor, and this is the first step which we are taking in that particular regard. True and Fair team is actually honored and privileged to have two very eminent chartered accountants, Dr. Ashok Haldia and Harinderjit Singh, with us. They are part of the advisory board of True and Fair, but they have taken a lot of interest in the way ADOC has shaped up. They have given a lot of guidances, inputs, especially considering the small medium practitioners. They gave a lot of valid inputs, and that really helped us shape up, because we were confused. Because many firms came back and said, no, give us a pack which will have only trial balance and reporting content. What we do in the audit, we will decide. As True and Fair, we are not comfortable with that, because there is an expectation of audit quality. If I give only a blank pack, is it going to really support that particular thing? Then we came across the Institute's guidance note on audit of small medium enterprises. So when we went through the guidance note, we got a lot of confidence, because the guidance note required everything required for every audit. There is no difference between a large audit and a small audit. There also they said you have to understand the business, understand the risk, assertions, controls, process, everything. So we said, what can we do as a concession? Only thing is, I can drop the control reliance strategy. That is the only concession I am able to give. So we are doing that. Yesterday, Institute has come out with the guidance note on work paper templates. We are totally elated seeing that. It's actually a pretty good product which they have come out with. Okay, it's actually pretty comprehensive. But that again reinforced our conclusion that we should come up with a product which will contain all the things, but tone it down to small and medium practitioners. You can't expect 0. You can tone it down from 100 to 80. Going below that is not going to be possible. That is what came, and that was the guidance which Dr. Ashok Haldia and Harinderjit were giving to us, saying that don't compromise on the quality intent of True and Fair. Don't take that into consideration. So we have done that. Okay. As many of you will be aware, Dr. Ashok Haldia was the former secretary of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He writes a lot of articles on the current insolvency situations in India or the regulatory matters. He's quite popular in the media side of things. Harinderjit Singh was the former partner in Pricewaterhouse, audit partner, former head of their national technical function and regulatory in India, and he was also the former Auditing and Accounting Standards Board chairman, Auditing and Assurance Standards Board chairman. So I can't have better people advising me on the technical side of things than these two gentlemen. Warm welcome to you, sirs. Thank you for being here, spending your time on a Saturday. So this event is going to be about the launch of ADOC, our non-technology platform. We will be coming up with the technology platform, which is ADAT, towards the end of this year. But in the meanwhile, when we did the webinar in February this year, many audit firms reached out to us and said, you have got a very good content available with you. Why can't we start using your content for the audit? That will also become a sort of a input for us to move to the technology platform when it comes live. So we discussed with our technology partner. We have our technology partner Finite Loop from Bangalore and Ethan Technologies from Coimbatore here. And they said that, yeah, we can do ADOC in a secure way, because what we are creating as a content is our intellectual property. We wanted to make sure that our content was secure. Okay, because we are providing a non-technology platform. That means anybody can replicate this platform. So we wanted to make sure that our IP was protected and secure, and it took us some time to get there, but we eventually got there. And as we speak now, Brinda, when she talks about the technology side of things, we are going through IT security audit also, because many CA firms came back and said, how secure is your environment? So fine, we said we'll get an audit done, and we'll present to you the audit report so that you can understand what is being done and where the security features stand at. So that is the intention with which we had the session. So with this, a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for sparing your time on a Saturday and coming in. And when we are deciding on the location to do this event, a lot of firms, people in my team said, why can't we do it in Bombay? Because Bombay is a market where we have met with multiple CA firms. So therefore, the attendance would have been probably bigger. We said that no, we want to do it in Delhi for two reasons. One is CA Day, Institute's headquarters is here. It is sort of representative of what the Institute would have liked to accomplish in their quality journey. That's one. Two is we have not interacted with the Delhi CA firms. And therefore, it gives us an opportunity also to interact with the Delhi CA firms and showcase where we are. So that is the reason why we chose Delhi. And today I am very happy to say that the firms which we are expecting to come and who are pretty dominant in this marketplace are all here. I am extremely happy with the presence of the firms which are here, and I am really thankful for that. Thank you. With this, Jyoti, you can take on to the next items. Thank you.
Thank you, Balaji, for explaining the essence of our efforts and the launch purpose. Now, may I call upon Dr. Ashok Haldia, former Secretary of Institute of Chartered Accountants, to share his thoughts on the state of audit in regards to quality execution. So, please. My bad. Brinda would be acknowledging and serving the.
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Mr. Balaji, for inviting me. And together with Mr. Harindrajit Singh, who has been very well known in the audit profession for decades. I am a former secretary of ICI. Former is always a former. I used to see the audit profession outside from inside. Now I am outside the ICI. So I try to see inside from outside. And that possibly gives me a 360-degree view of what the audit and accounting profession is and where it is heading towards. I had the pleasure of participation in all the international forums of accounting and auditing. And I had a strong view on the accounting and auditing profession. I'm sure these are not being to media is not here. Okay, yeah. I had a strong view where the auditing accounting profession was heading to, and even when it is heading towards. And I shared that with no hesitation, nationally and internationally. We have to accept, since I have a very learned colleague, Mr. Indrajit Singh, who have to add on, and possibly he's a better person to talk on the matter. We have to look at the reality, what is writing on the walls, and that we must look at not from what is forced upon us, because we are professionals. We should look at what is expected from us and how best we should respond to. If we are not able to respond to, then bridge that communication gap between the stakeholders and between the audit professions. Audit is a very onerous profession. It's a daredevil's job. And we must appreciate and understand this. There has been, we cannot go with a psychology or mindset at the last what would happen. Some penalties, some fine, some bar from the ICI to some member for some time, so what? That is the root cause of the problem. The world is changing very fast. The technology is taking over us. There is no time left to change over for conventional auditing and accounting. When I'm saying the conventional, not in the sense accounting and auditing that we read time and again in the past, but I'm saying even in the recent past. And the technology would take over us. The technology, artificial intelligence, it is there. It is going to be a reality in next 3 to 5 years. The audit would become, accounting would become online or live, possibly daily reporting and daily auditing. Many of us fear that the accountant and auditor's job might become irrelevant unless they are able to cope with and respond to the challenges. So the technology is first thing that we must respond. And Balaji's initiative in that perspective is very important. I have seen him, his commitment, his simplicity, his determination, and his background implies his possible capabilities in the audit. I had occasion to see the demo. I made some suggestions to him, and hopefully those suggestions he would have taken care of. It's a beginning, and I'm sure he's going to launch many products one after the another, because technology is changing faster. What is today, tomorrow, early tomorrow, it might get irrelevant, and therefore capping, and that's the vast challenge that he has to face with. And today I was happy to note the kind and the wide horizon of the professionals that he has in his team and all his own effort. I was not aware of. I thought it's a Balaji and solo Balaji. So that's a good Mr. Balaji. He faced the challenges, and he said that he has shown to some of the firms it is important for him to meet the expectations of the audit firms. I'm sure many of the audit firms might be reluctant to cope with. They might be looking with a diluted version of the software to cope with the practicality or the limitations of the firms and the professionals. But that's the microscopic view that possibly one should avoid. That would mean the compromise. Audit, as I said, audit is very onerous. How we need to respond, I'll come little later, but then I was talking about the changes those are taking over. The financial reporting today is the key. Tomorrow it's going to be, if not secondary, but there are going to be many other things. ESG reporting, climate accounting, climate reporting, and many other aspects of the corporate functioning would become equally important, rather more important, both in terms of returns, rewards, and the requirements than the financial audits. So are we ready to cope with that before some other professions or some other firms or even some other technology firms take overs? So that's the constant challenge, and I believe I shared my thoughts with Balaji, and I'm sure that would form part of his strategies and is an action plan. Now friends, it's all a question of mindset. Nothing but the mindset. Now, we were just talking that the changes, possibly NFRA would determine the pace of changes in the audit firms. That possibly is not the right approach. And I'm sure that's going to be. Every day I receive some messages from NAFRA, some cases decided, and so much punishment. Every day I find some partner, some firm action against those. Right, that is that is the warning bell, but that is a professional, that's not possibly right thing. That warning bell may only orient you to adopt physically, systematically, but not through the mindset. Quality comes from the mind. If you have the quality mindset, that nothing but the quality, ultimately it is the quality that would sustain, that would survive, that would flourish. No effort of Nafra, I've shared with those who matters, or no efforts of ICAI or the audit firm would succeed. Quality has its own price. But if you have the mindset, the determination automatically comes. The outlook automatically changes, and what needs to be done automatically comes forward. If you say, I will not compromise with the quality, what may come, you would see what you need to do. And an audit firm needs to invest 50 to 60% in the technology and its human resources and infrastructure. Do we do that? Might wonder that we do not get the fees. There could be questions which profession has been facing. Is there a fees? Now, if the fees is going to determine the quality, then the fate will determine your fate as well. And believe me, market values the quality and market price the quality appropriately. The only thing is that you need to have it and you need to demonstrate it to the world at large. Why do I know certain professionals by name? Not because the firm they come from, but because the quality or the determination that they have shown. I possibly not much interaction in the past with Balaji, but when he interacted me, I could see the determination into him. And I said, yes, possibly I can join him, or I can be in a way, if I can, little provide him my inputs. So that mindset approach is very important. Now, quality has many prices. Despite the quality, you might be hanged by NAFRA and FRA, and you say, what should those who do not value for the quality, they survive, they flourish, and we value for the quality. What happened? There is a case against us in NAFRA because audit is a very onerous. Anybody can any time, for any year, current or past, can approach the authorities and complain against you for good reason, for bad reason. And you may be liable, and ultimately you might feel what that. And you can never be perfect. I remember, I'll take a couple of minutes, one of the very leading chartered accountant in the country told me, look, the quality of audit that we do, and possibly there would be no error. Immediately I said, sir, you give me your two audited accounts, financial report statements, and show it to me. Within 1 hour, if I do not come out with problems in the financial statements, then I'm prepared to face the consequences. So that is the onerous job that auditor does, but that's the job the society expects. That's the job that the society values. So I'll not take much of the time. I would simply say that we need to be quality conscious. Our mindset has to change. We need to focus on our human resources. Who are doing the audit? Are we as a partner? I'm not a partner, but then are those who are as a partner or manager devoting sufficient time, leaving it to article clerks? Do the article clerks have the sufficient orientation, knowledge, the risk of the business, assessment, how to assess the risk? Do they interact with the top level management within the organization? Do have the perspective of the positioning of that enterprise in the economy, in the industry, in the technology? Do they have the enough IT systems, the IT security, how do you find a product if it is prepared on Excel sheets, any software, or where the back-end entry is allowed, where the audit trail or the editing trail in the transaction is not ensured. It may not be convenient, comfortable, but then how does someone who assess your technical softwares can satisfy or can convince himself with the quality? I remember a case when I was in the appellate tribunal, where I will not name those cases and those things, where someone very senior in the management used to change the back datas in the data room of this, or in the software, through the software, and nobody in the organization would know what has been done. Now, how can you as an auditor afford to? You cannot say that, well, that was the IT system that was given to us, or that was the audit system that they employed. So what I would to say, mindset is very important. Once you change the mindsets, or once all of us change our mindset in whatever we do, the things will automatically find place. So I'll not take much of the time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Haldia just said auditing is a devil's job. So trust us, we all know that. Have you seen the way the clients look at you when you go to them? It's like, the Yamraj himself has come. And we feel guilty because today the NAFRA wants us to be the bloodhounds also. I mean, the textbook says differently, but nevertheless, we are the bloodhounds, and we feel guilty when we look at the clients because we don't know what googly we are going to throw next to them. Nevertheless, thank you, Mr. Haldia, for your candid thoughts and for acceptance of the need of change. The realization that there is a need for change is the first step that one can take to seek change and create innovation, which we are working towards. Now, may I call upon Mr. Harinderjeet Singh, former audit partner and head of National Technical Function and Regulatory in Pricewaterhouse India. Mr. Singh is also the former chairman of the Auditing and Assurance Standard Boards of ICAI. Archana, can you please come and, I again lost her. Can you please come and welcome Mr. Singh on behalf of True and Fair? Sir, kindly share your thoughts on audit quality today.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind introduction. Good afternoon. And again, happy CA Day. Auditing is a very emotional subject for me. I've been, all my life I've been doing auditing. And therefore, I thought I should not get emotional and go astray within the time limit. So I prepared a small speech for all of you, which nicely sets up the context of the panel discussion which will follow. And I am also very eager to hear what the participants are going to talk about in the panel discussion rather than me speaking. But anyway, I have certain remarks to make on the present situation of the auditing profession. And I must say that we are going through some challenging time. There is no doubt about that. And there are certain factors which have led to this. One factor, very important factor, is that in last 10 to 15 years in India, we have witnessed corporate failures of very high profile and high magnitude. And that has led to increase in and evolving laws and regulations. Some of them, people say, were knee-jerk reaction to the whole thing. Dealing with the auditor has to deal with multiple regulators with overlapping jurisdiction. Certain adverse court and disciplinary proceedings have gone against the auditor. There has been resignations of independent directors and the auditors. The stakeholder information requirement has gone up. And here we have to be very careful. We are not only talking about shareholders. We are talking about the wide range of the stakeholders. And of course, as Mr. Haldia also talked about, the non-finance information is also going up. All this is adding up, whatever I just said, to widen the expectation gap. You must have heard this term very often, and the truth is that there is an expectation gap. But whatever factors I've told you has widened that expectation gap. There was a lot of mention of NAFRA, and I want to go next level to what Dr. Haldia said, that every audit they have picked up, they have come out with deficiencies. What are those deficiencies? They are practically covering the entire process of audit. So whether it is the planning, whether it is the execution, whether it is the completion or reporting, NAFRA has had, in their report, said that there have been, these audits have been deficient. Going into little more detail on what those deficiencies are, and this is where I would like to hear the panel later on, and we will talk about how ADOC, which is the documentation tool, will cover those deficiencies. So it could be relating to compliance of Companies Act and standards of auditing, quality management systems, independence, non-audit services, risk of material misstatement, related party transactions, professional skepticism, external confirmation, professional misconduct, materiality, documentation, reporting of fraud. As of 2 days back, NAFRA has come out with a circular which is very onerous as far as the auditor is concerned on what its duties are for reporting of audit, right? Needless to say, so these are just some examples, and we'll see in our panel discussions how much we cover that, how the documentation covers us in that. Needless to say, the penalties are very high. I mean, high to the extent of unimaginable. This country has never seen those kind of things, like banning of the audit firms, you know, penalties going up to 1 crore, etc., etc. So the audit profession, keeping all this in mind, the audit profession therefore has no choice but to transform itself. You know, I'm reminded of Sarbanes-Oxley Act when it came post-Enron in US. Many people left the audit profession and went towards compilation, went towards AUP procedures, but they came out of the audit because they said they cannot deal with the regulators' expectations and the stakeholders' expectations. I think we are at a similar cross point in India, that people have to make up their mind if they have to remain in the auditing profession, then the only way to do is to comply with standards of auditing, laws and regulations, and what NAFRA is telling us what is their expectation from the auditor. Now, where does this all lead us to? It definitely leads us to improving the audit quality in the firm. There is no doubt about that. And there are some examples I can give on how this audit quality in the firm can improve. Let's take example. Let's start from the top, the leadership. As we were discussing, many people think that the people at the junior level don't want to do the stuff which is required in standards of auditing. Here is the role of leadership which comes up. And I mean tone at the top. How do they drive that throughout the organization that if we have to remain in auditing profession, this is important? How well we train them so they can meet the requirements. Adapting, Dr. Haldia talked about adapting to the new technology is very important, because it cannot happen that our clients are adopting artificial intelligence, blockchain, analytics, and the auditor is still doing a traditional audit. It cannot happen. Definitely, we are leading ourselves towards audit failure. So we have to train ourselves to these new technologies. Talent management, HR practices is very important. We have to attract the best and the brightest to the auditing profession. And the only way to do that is, again, the leadership believes that we need to have the best talent, maybe pay them the best remuneration to attract these people. So this is very important. Methodologies, consultations with the experts are also very important. Monitoring system, how do we correct our organizations, our systems, policies and procedures, where an external agency, it could be peer reviewer, it could be NFRA, it could be quality board, if they have pointed some deficiencies, how do we correct those in our systems is something with. And last but not the least is the documentation. In our firm, we used to say that if it is not documented, it is not done, right? And this is what is coming true from all those inspections which are happening. If you have not documented your work, there is no evidence of that, you're surely moving towards a deficiency in the audit. So that is the context I wanted to set for our subsequent discussion. Now, a word about Balaji. Balaji and I have been attending meeting for at least 10, 15 years together in various committees. And I'm very happy to note that Balaji and his team are not only passionate about their subject, but determined to make change in the audit profession. And therefore, I agreed to join as an advisor to True and Fair Professionals and to give my 2-bit whenever asked for. Also, I am looking forward to their new tool after ADOC, which is called ADAT, right? Which is going to be a technology-based tool which links the controls, risks with the procedures. It's like you can think like a mini ERP of an audit software. I'm really looking forward to that software. So with that, best wishes to all of you. I am looking forward to the rest of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Singh, for your kind words. Mr. Singh said auditing is an emotional field. Uh, we've been into this profession for the longest of times, and trust us, it's in our DNA. Everything that we do is emotional today, and it's all about auditing. He also spoke about knee-jerk reaction, right? I think all of us get that every day in the morning when we see one or the other circulars coming from NAFRA. It's just there. uh, Mr. Singh also spoke about people. Am I not audible? I need two mics? Cool. Thank you. Mr. Singh also spoke about people shifting to another, shifting to a different field into the audit, that is compilations, when SOX came in. But sir, today, we also see lesser and lesser people joining audit profession because of the required, the surge in the regulatory requirements. However, we at True and Fair are working towards making, and we are trying our best to make audit easy and compliant. Now, let's move ahead to the panel discussion. You're looking forward to it. We are looking forward to it as well. Balaji said, okay, don't make me sit for the longest of times without talking, okay? So he wants to be a moderator here. So Balaji, you're the moderator. Now let's invite our panelists. A round of applause, please, from all of you when I invite them. Mr. Girish Koschik from JAA and Associates, Bengaluru. Mr. Rishabh Lodha from Lodha and Bhatt, Bengaluru. Mr. Surendra Reddy from Guru and Jana, Bengaluru. Mr. Hitesh Garg from TR Chadda and Co. LLP from Delhi. Mr. Anil Giridhar from Kirtane and Pandit, Delhi. Ms. Srishti Sarayan, partner True and Fair, leading the vertical of data analytics. Please come on the stage. Srishti is very excited about it. I mean, she just can't keep it in, like, can we have the chairs? I just arrange the chair. So Balaji is holding the stage now.
Yeah, please. I'm missing Srishti, I think. Yeah, so we'll have a brief discussion about audit quality in some practical issues which audit firms face. Considering our agenda calendar time frame, we are going to be probably having 5 questions to discuss with the panelists. I'll be asking one question to each of the panelists. I'm going to keep Srishti free. She's going to respond to all the 5 questions, so I'll keep her free. Okay, and the lead respondent will share the thoughts, and then others can supplement to the questions. That's how we'll do this thing. So today, there was conversations from Harinder about expectation gap. So we'll start first discussing expectation gaps. First is understanding some of the expectation gaps and how does audit firms address those expectation gaps. A lot of mention was there about NAFRA. Personally, I'm not bothered about NAFRA, because for NAFRA the only expectation gap is complying with the standards on auditing. You comply, there is no expectation gap. It's very simple. NAFRA can be addressed very simply. Okay, we are not used to the tone or the magnitude of penalties. That is a different thing. But the expectation is very simple. Expectation is you comply with standards on auditing, I will let you go free, not an issue. Okay, and in one of the orders, actually, NAFRA has taken also a proportionate view. They didn't ban the partner. There was only order where they didn't ban the partner. They put only a monetary penalty. Though I couldn't see much of a rationale to it, but that's what they did. So therefore, one can presume that they are also grading the level of non-compliance and trying to see what should be the level of penalty which should be there. But NAFRA, I'm not going to be bothered. Therefore, let's not address expectation gaps with NAFRA. So, Surendra, I think I'll start with you because in Bangalore, your firm has taken a lot of initiatives on quality in terms of even addressing things. In fact, till a couple of years back, they refused to do listed companies, saying that we are not up to the scale. Okay, then they invested in quality, and now they are doing listed companies also. But they were very conscious in terms of probably what they felt, what they need to improve, and after only making that investment, they went into the thing. So they were starting to set the tone on expectation gap a couple of years back itself. So, Surendra, your thoughts, please.
Thanks, Balaji. Thanks for the opportunity. I think a lot is spoken on the expectations. I don't think it's going to go away. I think rather, at least in the recent past, it has widened as Singh sir also was telling. Probably the constant communication with the stakeholders. Obviously, at the public, we cannot do that communication. Definitely with the other stakeholders, definitely it can be investors or it can be the client, board, whoever it is. I think the constant communication is very, very important to bridge that gap of expectations. If it's unreasonable, probably as audit firms, we should go meet them and express what is the difficulty in pushing that whatever the quality or certain questions that we ask and what are the documents that we are asking. Probably again, if you classify the expectation gap, it can be one side and the performance side, and the other side it is the knowledge side. Probably the performance side set the what is that we are expecting from the client versus what client is expecting, whether it is reasonable, unreasonable. I mean, solve that issue. From the knowledge side, I think that's very, very important. Build in-house. Each industry is very, very different. The dynamics of the business have changed quite a lot. I think what as a BFSI, what we require as a knowledge, and the rest of the industries, what we have to require as a knowledge. Or if you take even the startup world, the ecosystem is very, very different. The speed in which startups are growing, maybe some places controls are not going. I think this is where constant communication with the client and invest quite a lot on the people and technology. Some extent probably we can bridge that gap. I don't think we can zero down. And at the other stage where the public expectation, it's very, very different. They think that as an audit firms, once we have done, put our signature, they think everything on the earth we would have covered. But it's not so. I don't think that can be addressed. As a entire profession, probably we give them a lot more confidence. Probably some perceptions can get changed, I feel. But some extent we can bridge the gap, not 100%, though. That's what I feel.
Others, any views on addressing the gaps?
See, my view is that earlier the mindset, we were not able to push back our clients, let's be honest. Now we are ready to push back our clients, seeing the resignations of auditors. So the mindset is changing now. I think that's what Dr. Ashok Haldia said. It's the mindset. Now we are able to push back the client. We're saying, okay, I can't sign this, I'm resigning. That's the mindset. I think I'm very happy that this change is coming and it's only better for us. And in our profession, if we don't own up the expectation of society, we are not supposed to be in this profession.
Yeah.
I think Dr. Haldia rightly said, right? Once you decide to enter into the audit profession, that should be driven by an understanding of why you are, the higher purpose. So that casts a lot of responsibility as auditors. It's not through regulation, so I agree with you. I don't think NAFRA should make a difference in how we should address this. It's a chance to relook. As Sir said, I think a lot of Big Four is doing another service of actually setting the a very public example of resigning from audits and setting expectation of what can be acceptable, what cannot be acceptable. So I think that's the way to do it. Establish a purpose.
Yeah. So I agree to most of the points which have been spoken here. The first thing is communication. I think as auditors, traditionally we have been very poor in communicating. All the brilliant work which you land up doing on behalf of the CFO gets the credit in the audit committee because you don't speak about it. You don't even tell how much you have supported the CFO. We don't take any credit for the work which you do on behalf of the company. So, obviously when the communication is not there, obviously they don't understand what the auditor is doing, why it is happening in a particular way. So I'll digress slightly. In True and Fair, we have got a very, very crazy concept. I am challenging my advisory board to help me out with that concept. Right now in discussion, it is in discussions with PR Ramesh. As True and Fair, we want to advise the auditors to come out with a talking audit report. This is an audit report which is supplementary or an annexure to the audit report which is currently being issued. Because if you look at the audit report currently being issued, if I cover the name of the company, can you tell me which company's audit report you are reading? How can HDFC Bank and TCS audit report be the same? It can't be the same. But today it is the same. So what does the user get in that? Nothing, zero. Therefore, we are actually suggesting let the auditor come out with a talking audit report. In the talking audit report, the auditor better explains what is the audit he did. That means what is his risk of fraud in the audit, or what is the procedures he performed. Therefore, you are setting the expectations of the reader very clearly. What is the role of the auditor in doing the audit? Tomorrow, stakeholder then cannot imagine that the auditor is responsible for detecting frauds, because you have not told. You have told him very clearly what you are doing. So I want that communication to happen. The other matter of discussion which I had with Mr. Maligam also is I actually wanted to bring in a point on audit fees in the talking audit report. Explain to the stakeholders, which is the shareholders at large, saying that I asked for an audit fee of let's say 50 lakhs. Client has agreed on an audit fee of 30 lakhs. I generally will accept it. I don't have a choice. I'll crib curse, but I'll accept it. Now, have I ever communicated that this 30 lakhs is not commensurate to the fee I should have normally got? And am I telling the stakeholders at large what is the impact that cut in fees is going to have on my quality? Because when I look at my fees represents three elements: recovery of costs, share of profit to the partners, and third is definitely investment in quality. The minute fees is cut, the first thing which gets cut is the investment in quality. Second thing which cut is costs, because you try to control the cost, you don't give the increments which are there, then the attrition happens, it gets into a negative spiral. And lastly, it will get impact the partner's profit. But are we communicating this? In fact, even today, when we discuss fees, who do we discuss the fees with? We discuss the fees with the CFO. We don't even discuss it with the audit committee. You have done all the favors to the CFO, not claimed credit for that, and you don't even discuss the fees with the audit committee. You have made two mistakes in communication. One is not telling the audit committee what work you did for the CFO. Two is you never discuss your fees for the with the audit committee, justify why you are asking that fee, because you do the management's work also. But let's stop all this. No? Communication, like Surendra Reddy said, I think is the first point in balancing a lot of these expectation issues. I think you should all take it in mind. It's a fantastic point. Thank you, Surendra. I'll move to my next question, and this I'll focus on Anil Giridhar, because Kirtan and Pandit, we know that they've invested heavily in quality initiatives. As you are investing in these quality initiatives, what do you see as the inhibitors today?
So, I was talking to Mr. Singh also. The first, how do we ensure you can go and buy a great software, you can buy everything. The first and foremost is the acceptance by the people, the ground staff who has to use it, who has to put the data, who has to do everything. So how do we get their buy-in? That's first. Second, of course, is the cost consideration, because as you rightly said, the fees ultimately the client is cutting for whatever reason. So the cost is another consideration. So these are two large considerations which are there. Third, of course, we have no choice. We are left with no choice now. The growth of large firms in India, and the Indian firms not being able to come to the quality because they were not investing for whatever reason. So if India has to see as the vision of all of us getting the India on top, is that Indian firms, Indian chartered accountant firms, grown in India, originated in India, should become large. And it should be the other way around now. It should become multinational firms rather than other way around till now. So the investment mindset of these Indian firms in talent, in software, and in the quality of work has to be there.
Any other thoughts? Inhibitors of quality?
So one more thing I would like to add is we are not open to criticism. When investigators or any other people are looking at our files, we do tend to step back, and we don't initiate any internal reviews for ourselves. Any mechanism that we can review our own files or set up an internal mechanism wherein we improve on our own quality. That is something which we do tend to take a step foot back, and we are not open to that idea. That is one of the factors which we must look at. And another thing which I feel is, like sir mentioned, that it is very important to collaborate, but we are pretty narrow-minded and look at only our personal goals or our personal gains, I would say, rather than looking at a broad picture, that if we are coming together, we can actually compete with the big four, big six.
Yeah, I think one important thing sir was mentioning that there's a lot of challenges that they face while implementing a software or quality mechanisms at the lower staff, right? So that's one thing where the tone at the top helps quite a bit. So as long as the top management or the partners are communicating with the team the objective of why we're doing whatever we're doing, and the implications that we have if we are not doing this, that is something that helps people understand why we're doing a certain thing. And essentially in the audit profession, the issues that get solved at the top are generally brought up by an article or by the junior most staff. So unless we equip the junior most staff to think the way we are thinking, it is going to be very difficult for us to implement quality in any firm. We might get whatever tool we want, but unless there is change and perception management at the lowest rank in the office, I don't think quality is going to work.
Yeah, here again I agree with almost all the points. Okay, the first thing is a bottoms-up approach, like what Anil was mentioning. I think the buy-in from the staff is very, very critical. Now, buy-in from the staff should be by encouragement, not by enforcement, because enforcement will only increase the resistance. Encouragement will support the staff improve on adoption of the quality. And Srishti's point was very valid. Any inspection, I used to look at as a learning from the mistakes. To err is human. We will say forgive is divine, but today that's not the context. But to err is human, you learn from that mistake and take steps to improve yourself. So how are you improving yourself? That is a very, very important aspect, and therefore that internal review, internal inspection becomes extremely very, very important. Coming to ADOC, in one of the contexts you have spoken, in ADOC what we are trying to do is, we want the audit firms to try out ADOC, and we want only the users of the audit firm, which is your staff, to do it. We don't want the partners to look at it. I want feedback from the users, because they are the ones who are going to use this tool day in and day out. Unless they are comfortable, any tool which you buy and trust, it will be an enforcement, it will not work. It's not worth it. You should not invest in the tool. This should be a tool which is, or anything, any technology, I won't restrict to ADOC, any technology should be something which the user feels necessary and demanding, so that it becomes very relevant as they adopt the particular tool. So moving ahead to my third question, there is conversation about tone at the top, there is conversation about staff acceptance, etc. So Hitesh, this question is for you. Where do you see the perception on quality amongst the partners and the staff? Is there a difference? Is there a synchronization? What do you think is happening?
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, all of you. First of all, I want to ask from you, so whether you see that there is a perception gap regarding the audit quality between the staff and the partners. Do you agree that there is a perception gap? So what we as a partner think about the quality and what the audit staff think. So I think that most of us must agree that the level of audit quality as a perception the partner think, and as a perception that the audit staff is having altogether a different thing. And that, what is the reason for that? So reason for that, if you see that the kind of the expectation, so that everybody is talking about, the kind of the expectation regulators is having, stakeholders is having, altogether is different, and the who ultimately bear that. So ultimately is the engagement partner only. Like the sir was saying that the inspection came 2-3 years or the 7 years later, then the audit was done. And when we look into the files, the most of the audit staff is not with the organization, and it is only the engagement partner who ultimately bear all these things. So that's why we are saying that the perception of the engagement partner is altogether different from the the team. And then now what are the reason for that? So reason for that, to my understanding, is the one thing is the experience and the expertise as far as the partner is concerned and the staff is there. Other thing is the responsibility and the accountability. So partner is more together the responsible and the accountable whenever there is any kind of mistake that would be there. So other thing is the timeline. So timeline and the pressure that is there towards the audit staff to close up for the audit. So when we are seeing the I want to highlight that nowadays there is a kind of race to close the audit within that period of time. After the closure of the period, let's say the companies are rushing to publish the result within 10 days, 15 days. So practically it is not possible for all type of companies. Some companies are having that kind of infra, but some kind of the companies not having that kind of infra. But they have to close the financials, and the audit staff is under that pressure because ultimately they have to complete the audit. But when we come to the audit partner, when we relook into the files, so there are a lot of things are missing. So they don't understand what is the real reason for that, because the kind of pressure in which the audit team was working altogether different than the perception of the partner. And the one way it is a kind of the problem from the partner level also, because the kind of staff that we are giving, so whether they are equipped with the kind of the audit quality that is required. Because we say that we need the quality, but we are giving that kind of audit staff. That is also one of the problem. Other thing is related with the training and the development, overall development of the team. So it is not only about the technical training, but overall development of the team to understand the perspective of the audit quality as such. So in my view, these are the main reason due to which there is a gap between the perception related with the audit quality, with the engagement partner and the audit staff.
Any other thoughts? So, couple of pointers here. One is, I think partners should take the initiative to communicate to the staff very clearly what is the quality expected, so that you try to bridge any gap which may exist, so that the tone is set from the top. Okay. Second is also the partners enabling the staff to perform their work on a time basis. Like when he said client puts a deadline and we are struggling to meet the deadline, everything is compromised. Now, first question I will again ask is, we know that it's a challenge. Why didn't we go to the audit committee and tell them that let's not have all these unreasonable timelines, I can't complete my audit. See, today you are an advantage. My client is married to you for 5 years. You can't divorce in between. He will find it more difficult to divorce you in between. Okay. So why can't we have these frank conversations to say that I can't meet these timelines, extend it. I need this much time to complete the audit. So you will also be safe, I will also be safe. It's both in both our interests, because if I do a compromise job where something fails, you are responsible, I am responsible. Maybe I will face more flack because of the way auditors are being treated, but he also faces the flack. Why are you getting into that? And today, at least in the public interest entities, the independent directors are very worried about this. Therefore, they won't mind a frank conversation. They really look forward to these conversations so that they also feel safe. So I think we should start, because the question is this: where does the circle start? If you start the conversation in the first client, that will percolate down to every client. But if you don't even make that start, this conversation is never going to happen, and you will end up in the same boat. It's not worth it. If you have a problem, you should go to the client and tell them that this is unreasonable, we can't do it. Okay. I can tell you Deloitte in an example. We used to have a Chennai based company, I won't name the company, of course it's public domain information, you all can find it out. They used to publish their results on 1st of April or 2nd of April for March 31. Okay. So when we went in as Deloitte, we said this is nonsense. How can you do an audit in 24 hours? Even if I have done a lot of interim work, whatever it is practically impossible. So we said we are not going to sign it. You move the date. With great difficulty, client moved it by 3 weeks. At least they gave us 3 weeks then, no? But had we not had this conversation, we would also been in a corner to do sign off in 2 days, and it would have been a terrible sign off. Because you don't know what is wrong in that. You never had the time to audit. You are placing faith on God and signing it. That cannot be the case, no. But you need to have these conversations. When you have these conversations, the audit committees will respect it, dates will get postponed, not an issue at all. And we have had these conversations, I have personally had these conversations in large companies and they have respected that. In large companies, eminent boards, saying that sorry, I am still due for something. You want to adopt the accounts, you adopt the accounts. I will sign it on when I complete the audit. You can't postpone your board meeting, don't postpone it. You have a board meeting, adopt the accounts. I have a right to sign it on a different date, I will sign it when I complete it. You take the risk of subsequent events, that's all. But if you are comfortable, go ahead with it. We are not stopping you. If you think your financials are so good, ready to be adopted even without the auditor signing off, fantastic, go ahead, go. Not an issue at all. So, but we need to have very clear conversations which will help in the whole scheme of things. We were also talking about technology, in terms of artificial intelligence, blockchain, all of them coming and things like that. So, Girish, what is the relevance of technology in terms of today in audit quality, and what are you people doing about something on technology?
Yeah, so I think let me stick to audit quality, technology for audit quality rather than blockchain
absolutely.
and other things that may come on the user side as well. I think most of us have used to audit automation tools, Microsoft Word, word processor. That's where I have so many more experienced people here. But even when I started audit, the only technology we used to use was Microsoft Word and Excel, and the primary versions of those. We saw some parts of audit workflow automation tools coming over the last many years, mostly limited to what, let's say, Big Four was adopting and doing. ADOC case where all of them have brought in a lot more rigor, mini ERPs as Mr. Haldia mentioned.
ADOC is still not launched.
I have had the privilege of seeing the previews. So these are all mini ERPs that help in the audit performance itself. But more importantly, and something that's of excitement for me, is I think artificial intelligence, extractive AI more than generative AI. These are going to transform the way audit can be done. I think sampling will probably be less relevant going forward when the ability to actually process large amounts of data, analyze them, using models to actually arrive at conclusions that can be a lot more reliable than sample, and reliance on controls to arrive at a comfort whether the account balance is right or not. I think that's where the world is going to go. That's where we need to be investing in understanding how those models will work.
Any other thoughts on technology?
One, as added to what Girish said, one, using of technology, all this is important. But another thing, what I would like to add it, I think as an auditor, we should go to the source data. I mean, see, in today's world, quite a bit of data which is there in their websites or tools or whatever it is, that will get translated into the financial data, which will go to the SAP or whatever the Tally, whichever the software which is. But unless we are going and seeing the source, we don't know the depth of the issue, if at all anything is there. I think connecting those financial data versus the source data is important, in spite of using the whatever the technology, whatever the tools and this one. Sometimes even client is refusing to share that data because the entire thing is flown. But then we don't know what is getting prepared there. Sometimes if there is an issue, obviously there is an impact on the financials. I think that is one thing we need to keep in mind.
I think one more point around technology. Fine, we have all artificial intelligence, all the data, all the information, all the analytics available to us. Yes, those are only tools available to help the auditor form an opinion. So as the another panelist also said, that we should go to source data. We should not forget that basic theory which we learned maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Okay, sampling can go change, but the basic common sense, basic questions, and ensuring that the financials are reflecting the true and fair view. So today now, with the advent of technology, a lot of information is also about the client is available in the digital domain. So we can cross-check a lot of information, and before we form an opinion, give our opinion about the audit. So I agree that technology is helpful, but ultimately, unless you put your mind and unless you put your basic professional knowledge and expertise in question, then only the opinion can be formed. Technology alone cannot solve everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to add, that one thing is the using the technology for the purpose of analytical purpose of doing of audit. Other thing is the how we demonstrate that the audit that is required has in fact been done. So based upon the auditing standard and the how we document, how we demonstrate all the audit process. So to my understanding, it becomes very difficult to do it manually. So till the time we have technology, till the time we have some kind of audit documentation or audit tool, so it is very difficult to demonstrate that all the audit processes have been performed and performed in time as per the requirement of the auditing standard. To see whether it has been performed, who has performed, at what time it has been reviewed, so whether it has been reviewed or not, whether the EQC partner has reviewed the same, all these things can be done by way of the technology only. So by manual processes, it becomes just impossible. So technology is very important nowadays to demonstrate the all audit processes have been done.
So just to add to what all these panelists have added, we are looking at, or rather auditing a lot of startup companies, which are the Zomatos and the Swiggies and Dunzos of the world, right? Wherein numerous transactions are taking place every second as I speak. So auditing these transactions and getting comfort over the numbers, it becomes really important, and it cannot be done only on sample basis, and hence it becomes very important to analyze and understand this data. So we need to actually understand how the company actually is looking at things first, because they have built-in bots. They are looking at various applications or various analysis which they themselves are doing to get comfort over such numbers. So we need to first understand what they are doing, maybe try and test those applications, whether we can rely on them, and also see if we can get help from other applications which are available, which we can leverage for audit. Like we have Power BI and other tools which are available in the market. So all such tools will actually help you analyze the data and get more comfort looking at those specific outliers which are of actual audit relevance or audit focus. And that would help us in doing more relevant audit, because we would be looking at the pinpointed, or rather the critical issues, and having relevant discussions with the client, rather than just saying that we have looked at it and gotten comfort over those numbers. It will really not help. When we go to them with specific issues, that these are the issues or this is how you can improve your process, it will also help them.
I think one key thing that we can take away from this is, I think one of the panelists was, one of the speakers was mentioning that AI and technology might replace accountants, auditors, but I still don't have an answer how we're going to get professional skepticism into an AI, right? So while we might use technology to crunch all the data, we might use technology to put everything in place, you will still need a human with professional skepticism to analyze that transaction. I'll give you an example from our office, right? So there was while doing an AP testing for a client, the client has the entire AP process on one of the tools that automate AP, right? So there's a PO, there is an invoice, there is a payment that has been made for that. Right, so if you see from a technology standpoint, that there is no red flag, but an article in the firm picks that up and he says that, okay, this invoice reads XYZ or audit support services. Can you show me proof of what support you've got, right? And the client doesn't have an answer to that. So I don't think a system will be able to pick up these things. It is still the amount of training that needs to be put into the people. So we can definitely use technology as enablers to automate planning, to not automate, to increase the efficiency in planning, to increase the efficiency of our work. But I don't think technology will be able to replace our work. So that's what I've got to say on this.
Yeah, I agree. So technology can only provide inputs to the auditor. It can't give the solution. The inputs have to be evaluated and duly considered by the auditor before they take their decision. That is where it would stand. And as volume of transaction goes up, I don't think sampling is going to be the approach. I think you have to get into data analytics. You don't have a choice, and that is something which will definitely be relevant and required. And we at True and Fair, with Srishti leading the whole thing, we will be investing heavily in data analytics. But we have been very strongly advised that your first focus is get out ADAT. Once you finish ADAT, you do what you want to do, but focus and get out ADAT. So therefore, we are channelizing all our energies to ADAT, and once that is done, we will start our work on data analytics. In fact, we are already having discussions with finite loop on some of the things, because the terminologies AI, machine learning and all are nice, but I don't know how to use it in audit. I frankly don't know. I can also use those jargons, but I don't know what to do with those jargons. Okay. And then when they gave their examples of other situations in other industries where AI and ML was used, I could simulate the same situations to audit. For example, there was some study done on some near miss accidents in the shipping industry. Now, I said going concern to me is a near miss accident. Can I do a study around going concern? If the company is showing a certain financial behavior, can similar financial behavior be picked up from the public domain and find out how many instances of going concern challenges arose? That will be a very good reference point to the auditor. Impairment assessment. Client is giving a lot of projections. You validating all the projections, all look nice, and we always generally say nice. Okay, but how do we challenge that? Can I get information from the public domain as to whether those assumption parameters are relevant or not? Today, how do we strengthen our use of the public domain? That can we bring it in a tool? Very simple thing. I am doing a data analysis. Some party has not paid. The client says, no, he's got some financial problem, but he'll pay. How much do I go behind that party to find out what is happening for him? What is his severity of financial crisis? What is the assessment I do? I trust the management saying that one more quarter, next quarter he'll pay. The next quarter will keep on rolling forward. That doesn't help. But can I do something today with the public domain information of that particular customer, whether I can do a better meaningful assessment? So, can I build an intelligence for that? Can I search that company name, what are public domain information available, to find out what are all the reports coming about that company in the public domain, to assess whether what the management is stating is fair or not. So, we want to invest some more in terms of analytics and how public domain searches can be improved by the auditors. This won't be a tool, but this will be a guidance. So, you can also sort of simulate and use it. That is what we will try to do. So, last question, just to summarize our discussions, what steps audit firms should take? So, Rishabh, you are the only left out.
Yeah. So, this is an interesting question. I am going to answer this from a mid-size firm perspective, right? So, the first question that comes up in our mind is, what is audit quality? What is audit quality for the firm? What is audit quality for the client? And what is audit quality for a stakeholder? So, while discussing with one of the stakeholders, so this was a CFO of one of the largest VC funds in the world, and he was the India CFO of that fund. He says that you say you have audit quality. Audit quality comes from people. The big fours aren't able to hire right. How are you going to provide audit quality? As a medium firm, you already get the talent that is not going to the big four, big six. How, as a medium firm, you are going to provide audit quality, right? So the counter to that is 2 to 3 things, right? As a mid-size firm, if we have our intent on audit quality, we focus on 2 things. One, hiring and retaining. Second, training, right? So when you are hiring and retaining, you try and pay as much as you are as much as competition pays. So for example, if a big four starting salary is 8.5 lakhs, you have to pay 8.5 lakhs. You cannot say that I'm going to pay 6 lakhs, 7 lakhs, there's not as much work. People are earning more per minute worked here than they are in the big four. That's not how it works. The first step is to hire right, and to hire right, we will have to jack up our salaries. Second is to train and retain people. Now, retaining people in the big four is rather more difficult because there are a lot of processes. There are no arbitrary decisions that can be made, which in a medium-sized setup, there are certain concessions, certain incentives that you can provide to people if you really want them to stay. So that is one way in which we tackle retention of people. The second is training, making sure that people have access to the right tools, people have access to the right content, and there is some amount of discipline in training them week on week, month on month. So unless we do these things, we are not going to be able to provide audit quality to the clients, at least from the firm's perspective, which is basically documenting, making sure things are happening on time, making sure the files are in a particular shape, the audits are getting completed on time. Now, when you look at audit quality from a client's perspective, as a client, so if I were a client and I were getting my books audited, why do I care how you're documenting your books, right? Why do I care what kind of documentation you have, or whether work done is documented or not documented? That's none of my concern. As audit quality, what do I want from my CA firm? I want proactiveness. I want want timely response. I want the firm to follow up rather than me following up with the firm that, you know what, please complete my audit, please complete my audit. These are the softer aspects of audit quality that probably a client would see, right? And in addition to that, what more can you do for the client? While you have the statutory obligation of reporting true and fair view of the financial statements, what are the additional 2 to 3 things that you can do as a firm to add value to the client? Now, this could be a board presentation wherein you highlight to the client that these were the shortcomings in the audit that need not go into the audit report, but these are to be taken note in the board. Make sure that, you know, there are some kind of corrective actions that are taken, right? The second step could be that there are certain compliances that are good to have, or certain good practices that you can recommend to the company. Third is, a lot of auditors end up giving a surprise in the audit report. So how can you avoid a no surprises audit? So if for example there is a qualification, how can you make sure that that qualification is discussed well within the timelines of the audit? So these are the kind of softer aspects that I think client perceives as audit quality rather than just our documentation. So that's audit quality for us internally, right? But audit quality for a client is what is eventually going to get us the fee. Right. And the last aspect where audit quality gets appreciated is for example, in a Bangalore market where we work with a lot of startups, there are a lot of funds that invest in these startups, right? So these VC funds have portfolio companies. Now, when they empanel an auditor or they recommend an auditor, they expect that they are kept in loop in terms of what is happening in the company, making sure that there are no fraud risks or those kind of aspects are being taken care of. So in terms of quality, if we are able to provide to these funds that we are taking care of your investment, we are being vigilant while doing the audit, that is something that they like, and then that helps us get more fees when we go out in the market. So these are the kind of things I think as medium firms we can try to implement to enhance audit quality.
Yeah, nice breakup, Rishabh. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, just to add what Rishabh has told, that the one thing is the retention of the audit staff, of quality staff. That is very important, because as a mediocre firm, so we don't have that kind of robust system that being standardized. So if a new person join and we just give them training, little bit training, and they can start working. We are more person driven like of the firm. So in the mediocre firm, the investment in the right kind of people and the retention of the same are very important for the purpose of audit. Other thing is related with the standardization of the documentation, audit documentation. That is very important, because at present at the mediocre level firm, those standardization is not there. So audit documentation differ from partner to partner, audit team to audit team. One team is doing a very good job, they are having a very good process of the documentation, but similarly within the same premises only, we can have the different partner, they have altogether different way of doing the audit. So that the audit quality suffers in any way. Other thing we can add this related with the training. So continuous training is very important. Like in the big four or the other big firms are having a continuous training, with generally the mediocre firm lack. So that is a submission from my side.
So on the training, so I was from a large firm, okay. One of the frustrating things on the training was check in the box. You were holding sessions with unwilling participants who are made to come, because unless they finish that, their appraisal is impacted, compensation is impacted, they are forced to come. But the connect of relevance of the subject matter most of the time did not happen. Therefore, you need to find a way in which the training becomes more involved, where people want the training. That is the way you have to deliver, because post training it will become a check in the box. People will come and sit, have lunch, tea, coffee, break and go off. That's not going to be the objective. Therefore, we have to be slightly guarded in terms of the training, but all the points are very, very valid points. One thing which excites me in the whole conversation is a lot of points which are spoken today on quality. My single ADOC will address most of the things. My single ADOC. I am not talking about the overall ecosystem we are trying to create, but the single ADOC will address most of the things. And I think Jaideep will be talking to you about ADOC as a product, and we'll take it from there. Thank you all. Thank you for your time, inputs. Thank you.
Alaji, I have a question for you. Now, we've covered all the points, right? No, let this be my place.
Okay.
You can move it. Now, Yeah, this looks better. Now that we've all spoken about, all key points have been considered, right? We have spoken about acceptance of criticism. We have spoken about change of mindset. We have spoken about communication, transparency, timely and relevant information. Now, how do you think, I mean, Jaideep is going to talk about ADOC, but how do you think is ADOC going to help people, especially keeping in mind the small and mid-sized firm?
The first thing, we believe ADOC will be self-explanatory. That means nobody needs any training to use ADOC. The second thing is the content in the ADOC is so self-explanatory that even a fresher will be able to use the particular tool without any discomfort, and they will be able to deliver value out of the tool. I'm very happy that one of the feedback videos, first impression videos, let me correct myself, it's first impression videos, which you have got is from a first year article. And what all he has spoken about, it is very difficult, generally for me at least, to imagine a first year article has used what we have put in ADOC with such ease. Okay, so that is where I believe. Therefore, our vision, True and Fair's vision, you are part of that vision, is we wanted to have a product which a person who knows English, who knows auditing, bit of auditing, will be able to use the tool right from day one. He doesn't need any training. Okay, it will be on the job training, looking at the screen. That is the training which he will have. He will gain a lot of insights about the company and industry, because one of the frustrating things I was having was we were moving away from understanding the client business to understanding audit. That is a wrong approach. Your audit is a process of understanding the client's business and communicating the results. Audit doesn't come above the client's business. So your starting point is the client's business. Unless you understand the client, your audit is going to be wrong. Okay. So I'll give an example. One stakeholder spoke to me. This is being audited by a large firm, Big Four firm. He said, Balaji, this Big Four firm, I don't know how they cleared the revenue number. Okay, because this is a startup company, and the startup company had certain things as its core. It's a fintech company. Okay, so fintech company means it has got to do with finance and technology. Simple fintech, that is the word. What was its revenue? It was revenue from advertisements in their website. Is the advertisement from the website revenue and operating revenue? Yes or no? If you put it as operating revenue, lot of fintechs, startups are getting valued based on multiples of revenue. So you will get a multiple of that revenue. Now you have to decide whether it's operating revenue or not. And you have to justify. If you decide operating revenue, you have to justify why. If you decide other than operating revenue, you have to justify why. So this stakeholder who has invested money into this fintech, he said, I don't even know what the firm is doing. They are not even able to answer this question. They have gone with what the client has told. So because the auditor probably has not understood the business. If you understand the business, you come to the right answer. We are so busy building our files and documentation and reporting checklists and everything that the client's business is completely forgotten. That should not be the case. We should understand the client's business, we should spend time in doing that, and then the results come out. This tool, ADOC tool, will help that.
Wow, and he still doesn't smile when he's praising his own child. Thank you, Balaji. I'll let you sit. We are auditors, right? So whatever he said, we are not getting into authority bias. So whatever he said, we are going to now corroborate through evidences that Jaideep is going to present. So let's welcome Jaideep on the stage to take us through an overview of what ADOC is. Do note that while during the presentations, we will also be running short videos, which is obtained from various professionals who have used ADOC, and these are professionals at the ground level. Jaideep, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jyoti. Could you just start the presentation? Yeah. So as we start launching ADOC, firstly, yes, one of the reasons we chose this date also is the 75th anniversary of the CA Day for our profession. So we thought this is a good time to start talking on audit quality. Fortunately, we are running on time. Now, what is it that we wanted to create? Balaji did mention a vision. We've gone ahead and said in our site, we've said it earlier. One second. Sound nahi aa raha hai. that we want to be a benchmark standard setter. The question is, what is that?
Profession by the profession for the
We
profession.
want to be a benchmark standard setter because once we set a standard of quality, it has to be better than what is there in this auditing standards. We are not setting the auditing standard as the basis. But I think Balaji mentioned earlier, he's not worried of what NFRA says. And why is that? Because their expectation is we comply with the auditing standards. Now, if we are doing better than what the auditing standards require us to do, no regulator will have a question. So what we are perceiving as our vision is to come up with certain levels of audit quality which surpass the requirement, because the standard is supposed to represent minimum requirements. That's not the exhaustive requirement. It's inclusive. That's the minimum requirement a firm has to do. And therefore, we do not want to limit ourselves to what's required under the standards. We are looking at coming up something that surpasses the requirements of these standards. And how do we intend to do it? We intend to do it like a guide. And this was Balaji's concept of course, taken from Abraham Lincoln when we said, of the profession, by the profession, for the profession. Which means anything that we do, it's going to be interactive. And as we go through ADOC, we've also said, we show some videos of, first impressions that were there. It's because we want to get inputs from the profession and give it back. The benefits when you start using something like this across firms is different firms have different clients. They get different experiences. Those inputs come into the file. We take guidances from that and start sharing with the rest of the profession, which means you might have identified some risks which are very specific. That's because you applied your mind, thought of something that can go wrong, because what is the risk on a financial statement? Something that can go wrong, which someone else might not have. But when this starts getting circulated, when you start building up a detailed risk database, it becomes guidance for all chartered accountants. And that results in what? That becomes a sharing among the profession. And that is why we are saying it's of the profession, by the profession, for the profession. So why do we need an audit documentation tool? Of course, I think Balaji mentioned earlier as well that the institute has recently come out, just a day or so back, of working paper templates. So the institute also has taken cognizance. There is a need for documentation. And I think sir mentioned earlier, what is not documented is not done. And most of the concerns that come out from the regulators is absence of appropriate documentation. They're not accusing the auditor of not having done the job. They're accusing the auditor for not having maintained documentation, evidencing that they've done the job. And that's the key differentiation. As long as you have something to support it. And it's a good question, because what do we do as auditors? We ask our clients to show evidences for the transactions they have done. So there's nothing wrong on a regulator asking us for evidences of what we have done. And therefore, it's not something new. We feel free asking our clients about it, but it's getting a little hesitant when somebody asks us for the same kind of evidence. So key thing comes in on maintaining documentation. So the reason we're calling this more as an audit documentation tool and not what otherwise is known as an audit automation tool is, I think in all the panel discussions we've come to a conclusion, audit cannot be automated. There may be a lot of talk of AI coming in. Will it replace? Because I remember a conversation a few years back. There was a small article in the newspaper where somebody said they have developed an AI tool which can do a bank audit in 2 or 3 days. And after that, there was a lot of hue and cry among a lot of the articles who were recruiting, who said, do I have a future now? Will I become obsolete if AI comes in? Now, that was very amusing, because audit, however, is such an area that cannot be automated. You can automate processes, and I think that was used, as Girish mentioned it appropriately, extractive AI. You may use tools developed by AI, you may use tools developed by technology, but the end of the day will always remain tools. They cannot replace the human brain, especially for audit. And that is why we prefer to call it as a documentation tool rather than an audit automation tool. Now, why do we need something like this? As I said earlier, yes, the regulators are looking at it. There is a need for documentation coming in. There is a need for improved quality standards, especially around auditors' independence. Now, if you look at what, and I think that came as a discussion earlier too, key aspects that NFR has raised questions on is A, auditors' independence, B, having documentation of whatever they said they're supposed to have done. Both of these are missing. Basically, it's compliance with, independence is the ethical or professional standards that exist, looking at the audit evidence, and overall quality practices. And why is the overall quality practices coming in? Because all documentation requires falls under the category of quality. So this is one key need that the profession has for improved documentation. Of course, there are other expectations from stakeholders, most of the time the shareholders. Each time, if you look at everything that's come out, all the cases, and if you look at how things have moved over the years as far as the audit profession's requirement, I think there was a mention of Enron a little earlier in one of the conversations. Enron happens in the year 2001. Other than resulting in eradication of one of the largest professional services firm at that time, Arthur Andersen just disappeared from the CA fraternity. It was no longer, it was the largest. Of course, now Deloitte sits as the top, but at that point of time it wasn't there on the list and nobody was as big as Andersen's at that time. But they disappeared. Resultant, he also had something called Sarbanes-Oxley that came up. So each time there has been a scandal, an audit failure, regulations have become tighter and tighter. The PCOB got set up fully to look at what auditors were doing, similar to how India now has NFRA looking to see what auditors are doing. You know, you had commenting on requirement of internal controls coming in with the Sarbanes-Oxley. We've had our IFC reporting that's come into India. Next, what happened? 2008, you had Lehman Brothers. Another big scandal. What happened? The entire revision of the accounting standards started taking place. You had IFRSs coming in to replace the international standards. Now, of course, India has also taken our Ind AS in with a lot more requirement. If you look at how your financial statements were under IGAP and how they came under Ind AS, the size of the financial statements nearly doubled. The number of pages, the amount of information you had to carry. The financial statements started looking like an MIS report with the amount of data they were putting in. Now, these are all the regulatory changes that came because of audit failures. And of course, we have our famous 2009, what happened with Satyam. What did that result? The entire Companies Act underwent a change. Because they realized that the Companies Act was not providing sufficient regulation over auditors. The NFRA itself was referred to and brought into existence. Of course, the time it took for all of this to take into effect took some time. But these large instances of audit failures, the only thing that could done was regulatory changes. I think it was mentioned, I think Saranjit Singh said, we cannot wait for regulations to force things. As quality, we need to charge and start addressing it. We need to take cognizance of what our profession is now, and we need to start improving. So I think even Jyoti mentioned earlier, we are trying from True and Fair's perspective to try and see what it is we can provide. And how have we been trying to do this? Each of us as partners or the time that we faced within a Big Four, all of us are ex-Deloitte. We have been involved in multiple types of varieties, industries of audits, listed, unlisted, private, group referrals, cross-country. We've been involved in quality initiatives, we've been involved in internal firm reviews, a lot of activities, and we felt all of this experience we've gained is, however, restrictive within one single practice. That was the India practice of Deloitte. And every time we were recruiting, and I had discussions, whether it was with recently qualified CAs, and I remember having a discussion with one of them when I said, how do you go about recognizing revenue? And he very gladly said, every time an invoice is raised and the GST amount is paid, we can recognize revenue. So I was surprised. It had nothing to do with accounting standard. He didn't refer to AS9. He didn't refer to Ind AS 115. Which means, as a practice, a lot of people have come comfortable with the fact that as long as I paid the tax, I can recognize revenue. And if that is how one person starts auditing, you never know what's the quality of the financial statements coming up, because the understanding and interpretations that they have is very different from what someone else may look at. And therefore, I felt, are we doing it right? That within the firm we developed so much skill set, so much knowledge, but outside, that's not the level of knowledge and experience that exists. And that's when, when Balaji first gave the idea saying he wants to do this, I was very excited because I was planning to leave Deloitte and start something like this. And I said, yes, this is a good plan, a good platform. Actually start sharing what we have learned, what we have gained, and start sharing it with the others. And therefore, I liked that slogan when he had, of, by, for the profession. So what did we start doing? We did look, when we got together to say, let's try and come up. And we started from a blank slate. We didn't look at what others had. We didn't look at, try copying what others were doing. It's of course, after we had developed quite a bit of our content, we actually realized the market already has some audit tools. When we started out, we felt each firm had their own. Deloitte had theirs, PwC had theirs, KPMG had theirs. So all the big 6, 7, 8 probably had their own audit tools that they were using. And we thought we were coming up with something new. Then somebody told us there's something called CCH. Somebody said there's something called Caseware. any audit, beyond audit, then suddenly realized the market was full of these tools. And we started wondering, saying, are we on the right path? So when we started having conversations with a lot of CA firms, they said, you guys are on the right path because none of these tools had all the content that you are representing. And nobody had documented so many risks. They were very generic, whereas the ones we had put in was precise. There were no control matches that were happening, whereas we had given controls. We had explained the procedures. We had provided templates. They said in comparison, your content is very good. And that's one of the background to how ADOC came into being from what we initially planned. We also realized that there's, and I think it was mentioned in the panel as well, one of the needs is to try and manage the attrition. Now, Rishabh correctly said, yes, we have to look at learning, development, and an element of retention. Now, how much can a firm actually invest? Now, if I go back 25 years to the time I started articles, the concept of training was always on the job. We never had classroom trainings. Of course, now most of the firms also have classroom trainings they conduct, but our practice was always on the job training. So what's changed? When I started thinking back, an audit, 25 years back, I would spend about 1.5 to 2 months doing the audit. 25 years hence, I do the same audit perhaps in 3 weeks. So what changed? You don't have time for on-the-job training. You have a lot of these tools have come in, technologies have come in, the fees have fluctuated, the salaries you pay to your staff has increased. You do not get the luxury of time on the field. So therefore, there's a need for, how training should now start moving. And you can't afford that each time I recruit, I can set up a classroom training for the person. And therefore, there's always a cost that comes in. I've recruited somebody today, can I put him on the field tomorrow? Perhaps yes, perhaps no, depending, is this an experienced person, freshly qualified? So we've said no, let's try and see if we can develop our guidances, our tools, which is easy to read. And I know how much of suffering we went with Balaji reviewing our comments, content that we were developing, saying, your English is complicated. As a CA, as a person with 30 years experience, I can understand. But what about the new guy? Simplify your English. And we had to keep revising what we were doing as far as content, and all of us partners who worked with him realized how much time we ended up putting in the whole process. But we realized later on as we did this that yes, he had a valid point. And that was that anyone reading it, as long as they know English, they're fluent in English, have basic knowledge of audit, which means even a BCom graduate who has audit as one of the subjects in their BCom without having to be a CA will reasonably understand what needs to be done. And as I said, no audit can be automated. So everything we put in will serve as guidance. You can be confident a freshly qualified or even an article who's just come in, perhaps done his graduation, has read the audit material, fair understanding of the standards requirements, understands the terms or concepts like professional skepticism, professional judgment. These are terms in the standard. He has to have a fair understanding what they mean. Everything else, at least 80-85% of the audit, he can be guided just by looking at what we have here. So that serves as on-the-job training. So we said, yes, this will actually help firms to try and develop their staff as they take through it. Well, of course, yes, from a quality perspective as well, whatever said and done, an audit cannot be, it's like a CA itself is a profession, and they always say this when you talk to doctors. No two doctors will give you the same opinion. Go to one, he may say you need surgery. The other one says medication is sufficient with bed rest and you will be fine. Now, which doctor do you believe? They can give you opposing opinions. Why is the CA profession any different? It's also a profession. Because we are highly susceptible to individual judgments. My experience will be different from Vishal's experience, Grisha's experience, and therefore the way they may look at it will be different from the way I would look at it. So when you start looking at a firm, the experiences of all the partners, the staff will always be different. And therefore, the way an audit is approached, there's a lot of inconsistency. And therefore, when somebody from outside looks at it, whether it's a regulator or anybody else, they can always question, in this engagement, you've done these 10 procedures, but here I can see only 5 procedures. What about the other 5? Why were they not done? You will realize when you speak to the teams, it's not intentional. They didn't do it because they didn't want to do it, but they didn't do it because it never occurred to them to do it. Because they didn't get the idea that they could also do these additional 5 procedures. So now when you start keeping a common platform, common documentation, everyone who looks at them will end up doing the same minimum procedures that are there. You can add extra procedures that are entity specific, or engagement specific, but at the minimum you will not miss out on something. So we felt, yes, that's another good benefit that comes in, because that ensures consistency in the way one does an audit. So these are all the reasons we felt, yes, a tool is required. So what did we do when we came up with ADOC? We had built an exhaustive library. We had developed risks across all account balances. We had brought in procedures, templates for starting from client acceptance requirements, what one needs to do. We realized there was a need for more than 100 different guidances that are required when we started populating the list. We are still working on it, but we realized there is a significant amount of guidance required. We realized a significant amount of templates required. Coincidentally, as we started working on this, we realized at the back end, even the institute had taken cognizance. They also started looking out for audit automation tools. So they had run a tender asking if somebody can help them develop an audit monitoring tool. You had the NFRA who came back and said, all audit documentation should be based on the cloud or electronic method. You should not have manual files. You should be able to even use the word, keep it on DigiLocker. Though I don't see how that can help, but they want to start tracking what is getting done by the auditors. As recent as the other day when the institute issued the working paper templates. So it's just coincidental that around this time we started working on this. Everybody's also looking at the need for audit quality. So there's no two ways about it. There is this need that's come up. So what we try to do is try and simplify. This is, as Balaji mentioned earlier, this is not the technology platform. So we've not complicated by using, confusing templates or formats or databases. This is simple Excel-based usage. So it's very easy to open. Everybody knows their Excel. They know how to move between cells. Of course, it has some shortcomings. We'll discuss that a little later. But we try to make it as simple as possible. It's easy for anybody to use it to just click on it, open it, fill up the data, close it. It auto-saves because it's on the cloud. Why are we launching ADOC as we were today? Because we did say when we all got together, we were looking at the technology platform to actually help. And as Balaji mentioned earlier, when we first started showcasing this, the initial templates, the data we had collected, what we had put together, how we expected ADAT to look at, and Girish mentioned he had the luxury of seeing the initial methods or formats we were started developing and what we were doing. And the feedback we started receiving with some of the firms, because we wanted to get some feedback on what their thoughts were. And as Balaji said earlier, they said your content is huge. If not anything else, it can serve as a guidance, it can serve as a reference library. We can start using it irrespective of how our tools and documentation requirements are. At the minimum, we can refer to it to make sure we've not missed out on something. So they said, why don't you start sharing this with us? Now, of course, this was our IP. We had spent, and we know how much time we've spent in developing this entire database. It wasn't easy. We had to sit and make sure all areas, all possible risks were considered. We had to make sure we had mapped all of them to controls. We had to make sure the controls are descriptive enough that anyone looking at it knows exactly what to go and ask for or test. So it was not an easy task. We had made sure that to make sure everybody understands what they need to do, we had provided guiding questions. In the sense, if I need to understand how the procure to pay cycle goes, it's not just procure to pay. We've said first element, if you have to find out how a purchase acquisition is done, then ask these 7 questions to that person. If you want to know how a PO is done, ask these 8 questions. How a GRN is done, ask these 5 questions. So it's for each element or process, we had developed what questions one needs to go and ask. And therefore, this serves as on-the-job training. You don't need a senior advising you as to what questions you need to ask or how you need to do data collation. We had put those questions down. And therefore, anybody new on the job could go ahead and do it. Now, how do we ensure that our IP, pending the technology tool, was safe? So we had to work on, a simplified form. Our technology team is here who's been helping us to say how we will try and share it. But we worked on a SharePoint, and we'll try and demonstrate on a demo as to what this looks like as well. But of course, it does not have the technology features. It is a simple SharePoint Excel-based tool.
Launching ADOC, an audit documentation content which represents the core content of the yet-to-be-launched audit documentation and archival tool, a DAT. Based on consistent feedback from various audit firms, there has been an expression of interest to be able to use this content even during the current audit season, pending the launch of a DAT, and so we bring you ADOC.
ADOC provides an exhaustive library of content in a detailed index to facilitate auditors to plan a comprehensive audit of financial statements, including reporting thereon, based currently on the IND-AS framework and in accordance with the Indian auditing standards. The reference content is shared in the form of MS Excel templates, which are easy to use and update.
ADOC can be used for performing, documenting, and archiving audits. ADOC can also be used as a reference library when audit is performed using other documentation tools or outside of the ADOC environment. On-the-job training, a person knowing English and understands audit can perform audit using ADOC with minimal training and support. Consistency in the performance of audit. Since the document template is standardized and exhaustive, the level of assurance on completeness and accuracy of performance of audit is significantly enhanced. Optimizing partner and manager review time. Since the level of assurance on completeness and accuracy of performance of audit is significantly enhanced, the time required to be spent by partners and managers on review of the audit work performed is significantly minimized. ADOC includes sampling templates for sampling based on monetary units and sampling on random basis. The trial balance feature enables the auditor to match the grouped amounts in the trial balance with the financial statements. Comprehensive library of checklists to facilitate auditors meet the reporting requirements under the Companies Act. Investment made in year one of using ADOC can be significantly leveraged when performing audits for the subsequent years, since the planning work paper templates will only need to modified for any updates. Guiding questions to enable the auditors to seek and obtain relevant information for performing the audit. Exhaustive library of risks, controls, IUCs and IPEs for each financial statement note or financial statement line. Exhaustive library of risks and controls for performing audit of the IT environment. Template for testing, design and implementation and operating effectiveness of controls. Exhaustive library of content for performing group audit. Comprehensive work papers for testing cash flows, going concern and subsequent events. ADOC leverage on the security features inbuilt in Microsoft Azure Cloud and SharePoint environment, which includes the multi-factor authentication requirement. The ADOC environment is also being subjected to an independent security audit covering confidentiality, integrity, and availability principles inter alia to assure the audit firms that true and fair will not have direct access to the information contained in the audit files that are hosted in ADOC. The pricing philosophy for ADOC considers the following: recovery of cost of maintaining the Azure environment, SharePoint, and providing technical support to users of audit firms in case they face any challenges in accessing the SharePoint. Charges for usage of content, which is the intellectual property of True and Fair, based on charges per user of the audit firm, less than 2,000 rupees per user per month. Recovery of cost of hosting the audit files in excess of the free data storage limits provided by Microsoft Azure. Cost of retrieval of archived audit files in case such retrieval is required. For further details, do reach out to us at contact@trueandfair.pro or visit our website www.trueandfair.pro.
So we did cover some of the salient features that ADOC would have, where we've spoken of checklists being available, content having risks and controls being documented, detailed guidances on how to do a group audit that is required. So if you look at what we have in total, we have about 127 elements covered. When I say elements, we're talking about account balances, such as trade receivables, pre-P&E, intangible assets, ROU assets. So The list goes on. You have your class of transactions where we split up. For example, we covered sale of products, sale of services separately, and we looked at those risks that come into that. So in total, we have about 127. This also includes the IT elements that need to be tested. We mentioned we've given guidances for IT audits as well. These individually at account balance level are broken up to processes. As we said earlier, for example, revenue, you'll have customer order to final collection that happens. So there's an entire process that comes in. So for 127 elements, the total of such sub-process, there are about 268 sub-processes. Total risks that we've identified across these 127 items is about 491 risks. These 491 risks have been mapped to about 480 controls. We've also brought in the principle of dual purpose testing, which means control procedures are substantive procedures that are carried out by client personnel. You carry out the same procedures, they become your substantive procedures. So conceptually they're not very different, and therefore we've said you extend whatever you're doing as part of control testing by doing the same procedures directly, and that becomes dual purpose testing, and therefore the procedures become consistent. We also have certain additional procedures, because one of the key things, if you look into SA 315, is if the risk that you've identified, and if you look at SA 330 as guidance, it says if the risk is significant, if the account is material, then you cannot say there's no risk identified, therefore I'll not do any testing. Or if there's a significant risk, you have to do certain additional procedures. You cannot do the standard procedures that are there. And therefore, we've also identified for certain elements where the risk is considered to be higher or significant, that there should be additional procedures done. So we have about 34 additional procedures also mapped. So this is the entire size of our database. We've also developed a lot of templates. We did mention earlier, one of the key focuses that comes in is, are the auditors actually looking and trying to identify possibilities of fraud? We may not be responsible to go ahead and detect the frauds, but we should have addressed all the possible areas where fraud could occur and have planned our procedures towards it. So we also try to develop certain templates providing clear guidances to help the auditors to try and figure out where a possibility of fraud could exist. Now once you look at the standards again, it advises two elements. It requires you to consider revenue and management override of controls. Now, clear cut, no business is set up not to generate revenues. All businesses are set up for revenue recognition, because that's what results in profit, and that's the definition of a company, where a group of people come together to put in the resources and to generate profits. So if I say revenue is a fraud risk, then what are we trying to indicate? Are we trying to say that companies should not account for revenues? No. You are supposed to go ahead, analyze and understand the revenue basis that the company has, the policies they have, and try and figure out where the possibility of fraud exists, and link that possibility to the relevant assertion, and then see whether you have sufficient procedures planned for it. So what we've tried to do is develop templates. We've not gone ahead and said this is where the risk exists, but we provided necessary guidances to help audit firms to come down to conclude where exactly in revenue recognition could there be a fraud risk. Similarly, we've gone ahead and extended it, saying these are not the only two elemented areas of fraud. We've also brought in related party transactions. Why? If you look at all the cases that have happened in the past 5, 6, 10 years, significantly they are associated with related party transactions, which either were never brought to the notice of those people involved, it was never approved, it was not authorized, nowhere, not disclosed. It's only once it came into trouble, when the regulators started looking at it, whether it was the courts, whether it's NFRA or anybody else, is when the facts of related party transactions started coming out. And all times the question raised was, why did the auditor not ensure disclosure? Because you have an auditing guidance on related parties, you have an accounting standard on related parties. So what was missing? So we do realize that yes, there's a lot of ambiguity in understanding who related parties are, figuring out what are party transactions, what needs to be disclosed, and therefore we've also classified that as a possible fraud risk factor, and there's a detailed guidance around that as well that we've kind of put together. So other things that we're giving is also all forms of notes, guiding questions, making sure these templates are easy to understand. We've not tried to make it just like a standard template. We've given leading questions, guiding questions as to how to understand the requirements better. We provided templates where necessary. I think in the earlier video that we showed. We have templates for sampling, we had templates for planning that is there, how that should be done, for understanding the processes, understanding the controls, preliminary analytical procedures. So a lot of these things we've created templates, simple and easy to understand. We've also put in templates for determination of materiality, what are the factors to consider, how do you calculate and document your materiality. A very detailed checklist on the role of EQCR. We mentioned earlier that one of the key concerns that even the regulator had is non-compliance with the quality standards. SQC1 is something that is there for namesake. Compliance with SQC1 is not taken in the mode in which it needs to be taken. So one of the key things is involvement of EQCR as well. Do we actually consider that person to improve quality, or is it just a tick in the box? So we've got a very detailed checklist which kind of indicates what roles and responsibilities the EQCR actually has to play. So it provides a lot of guidance to whoever is playing the role of EQCR, what they need to do. Because I'm sure if you've seen the way things go when the NFR is looking at something, it's not the engagement partner who's called up or penalized, it's the EQCR partner also who's getting penalized. So they play an equal role when an engagement gets done. So we try to see how much of it we can actually cover. We also developed exhaustive checklists to ensuring compliance with auditing standards, looking at compliance with Schedule 3, the various accounting standards, very specific guidance and checklists around 143.1 and 143.3, which is actually the reporting sections for the chartered accountant. Reporting under Rule 11, which was the new inclusion that came a couple of years back, and CARO 2020. Now, if you look at what are the key differences from CARO 2016 to CARO 2020, all the inclusions are fraud risk factors. So that also we've tried to link and demonstrate how these individual inclusions should be also factored and considered as fraud risk factors. So it's just not a matter of I mentioned something in my CARO report. I also need to go back and see, have I considered the implications in my auditing itself, my procedures that I've planned, disclosure requirements, and the main body audit report. I cannot say in the CARO report that my client has a Benami property. I need to go back and see. Now I have a big concern. If the management can go ahead and do such transactions, is the management reliable in the first place? The representations I've taken, are they reliable? Is this only in purchase of land and property they have Benami property, or all other transactions in the books also are questionable? So it's not just a matter of statement of fact. You have to consider the possible implications arising from this. And if you look at all these additions, they're all kind of indicative of fraudulent possibilities. So we try to link that and bring that also into our considerations. Now, I think Balaji mentioned earlier, when we started compiling it, we were thinking of a single exhaustive package with everything done in it. But when we started talking to a lot of firms, it came back and said, it's looking too exhaustive. We cannot do so much of work. Can you kind of reduce it? Can you give us options on how to do things? So we sat, kind of put our heads together, and we came up with these list of packs that we would probably come out with on ADOC. We said, kind of when we will commercially launch for a couple of reasons. We are still testing the security setup around how the IP can be accessed, how do we set up the file accesses for users, as well as some firms who are still testing this out for us, giving their inputs on what could be further improved. So we are also collating that. We will be sharing some of the feedback we've got from such firms who have done the preliminary testing on what we have put together. So we've looked at companies, we looked at where it is prepared under Ind AS, with or without control reliance, under the Indian GAAP or IGAP, with or without control reliance. We also looked at LLP separately because there's a separate regulation, and the institute did come out with guidance on what should be the format of reporting for LLPs. And they had a slightly different format of balance sheet and P&L that was put in there. So you tried to provide that as a separate guidance. And then you have all the other varieties coming into 2 more. And then we try to create for specific engagements such as limited reviews, what needs to be done for tax audits, which was the first thing a lot of firms asked us whether we'll be providing guidance on that. And then of course for certifications. Now certifications, of course, there are many varieties of certificates that are available. What we've tried to do is provide some guidance and checklist, at least to take you through the institute's guidance note as to what you need to be aware of. We've not tried to cover the packs for every type of certificate because there's no end to that list. So these are all the packs that we do intend to come out with. Of course, there are The list goes bigger when we come out with a technology tool. There are a lot more varieties that comes through, but principally this is what we would be providing. Now, how is ADOC different? I mean, when we keep saying the technology, what exactly does this technology feature bring? Now, before I go through each of these elements, Brinda, you want to come up? So I'll just get our CIO or CTO to kind of just brief the key technology features.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. See, actually, the security features of this platform is just briefly give an overview on this. The security can be at 3 levels: infrastructure, user, and the content. So infrastructure is because we are hosting it in the cloud-based Azure setup. The enterprise level data security and security features will be taken from there. And the second aspect is our document management, our content management platform is SharePoint. So that also brings in inbuilt security features, which is there in SharePoint, which we are subjecting it to a security audit of, obviously. The security audit has been done and the report is awaited. So we are subjecting that to the security audit in terms of patch compliance and stuff like that, because the type of files which are being hosted in SharePoint in this platform are of specific nature. So tomorrow somebody should not put in a code or a shell script to actually extract the data and make it available for others. So those kind of things we are doing it. We are not leaving it to the SharePoint security features to cover everything. We are doing an independent audit for that. And the third aspect is at the content level. So when it comes to the content level, the way we are structuring the logical architecture of this entire setup would be like every audit, when an audit firm is onboarded, there is something called, in the logical architecture of a SharePoint, there is something called a site collection. Okay, so every audit firm will have its independent site collection. So one audit firm will not know what is the site collection of another audit firm. So that way, the content that you are managing for a engagement will be kept private to only to that audit firm. The second aspect is within that site collection, the way the structure would be organized is every client will be a subsite. So once one client subsite will not be available for another client subsite. Okay, because the users will be defined there, they will have the access to those subsites. Then the third aspect is within the subsite, the engagements would be structured. Wherever your audit engagements would be structured there, and all the files would be kept as document libraries within that engagement. So the third aspect, the second aspect of the user security is basically because we have hosted it in Azure, we are leveraging the identity and access management of Azure, that is the Active Directory. So all of the users will have their work email IDs as their user IDs, and that will be registered as a part of the Microsoft, and that will be the user authentication that it will enable. Of course, there is a multi-factor authentication. So there is a single sign-on and a multi-factor authentication, which is there as a part of the user security. So the content security, as I told you, the way it will be structured for each of the audit firm, their content would be structured this way, and there is also certain level of access and restrictions that we have enforced on the document library, being the nature of the documents or the templates that are there. So for example, certain templates which are very very mandatory for an audit cannot be deleted by any user. Okay, certain sections which are flexible, because for that audit that section may not be applicable, that we have enabled for the user to audit team to delete it or not include it in the library. But certain templates which are required will be ensured that they are protected and they cannot be deleted. So the very purpose or the very intent of making it a guiding platform for a auditor will be defeated if you allow the deletions of the content, basically. So those kind of restrictions have been enforced, and we have defined a configuration for that, and every engagement will have a user group. The users who work on that engagement group only will be brought into that user group, and they will have access to that engagement file. So when we show the demo of it, you can see that actually. So that way the content through user permissions and through these restrictions that we have configured on the document library of an engagement, we have enforced that and ensured that And restrictions, other restrictions that we have enforced is things cannot be copied, templates cannot be copied, or your content cannot be copied to various other, make a copy of that template or a document. And then you cannot delete, as we said, certain things we have allowed for deletion, certain things we have not allowed for deletion. And print, moving it here and there, altering the structure of the document library, all that is not enabled. So that way the user will be having the, he cannot move around things and change, move the document from one library to another library, because it will not happen. You cannot share the documents, and you cannot copy, print or download. Restrictions are there. Of course, you can upload the client provided documents or any other reference documents, any other supporting documents for a particular work paper can always be uploaded, and they will be maintained within the document library. So these are the security aspects that we have taken care of in terms of the putting in the architecture of that platform, basically. So, have any questions?
All these features are only for ADOC.
See, these features will continue for ADAT also. Okay, but we have we do this, we are now doing this onboarding little offline. Okay, we are doing it like an offline workflow, and then integrating it, breaking it onto the ADOC. But ADAT will be an integrated one, where the audit firm can onboard a user. Of course, there is a workflow, there are approval mechanisms for that. They can onboard an engagement. Okay, there is an extensive or a very comprehensive, I would say, or engagement onboarding feature, which will enable the engagements to be onboarded. Of course, that will be subjected to approvals within the audit firm, like a partner or above him, somebody has to approve that engagement onboarding. So all these are integrated there in ADAT, whereas here it is kept little offline right now. And the same with respect to usage of the content, the templates, the documents, the restrictions on the content, that will continue into the ADAT as well. Okay. Yeah.
So, since it is your AD, so when we will install it in our machine, some of the machines are also on BYOD concept, build your own device, considering the staff. So will it require the genuine license of Windows or Microsoft?
Yes, you should be on Office 365.
It's like,
yes,
version, then
it cannot work. Yeah.
Because all of the
it is Office 365 you have to use, because it's a SharePoint online. Okay. So you have to be on Office 365.
Yeah, so we need to have proper license Windows as well as Microsoft Office to run this ADOC.
Yeah, also. Office 365 actually. Yeah. Now there is no. So you can work on any machine. Yeah. So if you have a license, you can work on any machine. It is not bound to the machine that you are carrying actually.
That I agree.
So Office 365, I can log in sitting in some other machine. I can log in.
So only Office 365 or the Windows license also?
No, actually, Finite Loop can help me out in answering that question. Yeah, it comes. See, now it is coming along with that, right? Windows and.
Because for our Office systems, we can assure those have genuine license, but where the article staff is carrying their BYOD with some of the assurance we have compliance, then if those systems don't have genuine window license, then whether we can install this ADOC or not. For
so ADOC doesn't require installation, but I'll get Anand to.
No, they need an Office 365
license. So the Office licenses are required, but
so
we
our
don't.
email IDs are on Office 365.
I get your question. So the enforcement of Windows being authentic is enforced by Microsoft. That's something that we can't control directly. So depending on whether that license is permitted through the Office license, the user then will be able to use it. As long as they're signed into the.
His question is on two.
Yeah, no, I get
Windows itself may be
yeah, that's what.
Office license may be authentic.
Correct. So what I'm saying is that the Office license is mandatory to be authentic. The Windows license we can't ensure or we can't inspect. It's Microsoft that is doing.
Because the risk comes if you're connected to the internet, also they may be tracking it without necessarily using it.
Madam?
365 would be required.
Yes, Office 365.
Because
now all the current licenses are only Office 365.
Yeah, but the old licenses are on the other. 2021 is still working, and in our office we are having
online SharePoint online, right?
Yeah.
So it's if you have to enable the collaboration and all, it has to be on.
With Office 365, there is no Windows 31
Yeah, it is bundled along with they upgrade and maintain the Windows versions.
Ma'am, see, if print is allowed, certain things can be used for client confirmation. So what is restriction for, what is reason for putting restriction on print?
See, we don't want this because it is a combination of, see, your customer data is also there, and the IP of true and fair is also there in terms of those templates. So yeah.
Let me just respond.
Yeah.
So, client confirmation is not part of ADOC. Okay, that's a separate technical library and guidance which we will be coming up with, which the audit firms has to subscribe. Okay, in that subscription, certain templates you can't copy paste or print. Certain templates will permit printing. For example, confirmation format is there, we will allow printing of that. But that is not going to be sitting in ADOC. That will be a separate subscription because confirmations are required for many items in the financial statements. I can't give everything in the ADOC. That is a separate intellectual property that will keep changing based on what is happening.
Thank you.
And what will be the process of retrieval? Let's say if we have to submit, let's say complete file to the.
So you will reach out to us saying that this file has to be submitted for this particular purpose. We will download the file and give it to you.
So archival facility is also there brought into it right now.
So archival is also, therefore you finish your audit and you have to archive under SA 230 within 60 days, you can archive the file. So the file will get compressed and it will go to a sort of a cold storage. Then tomorrow you want to access that particular file, you can access that particular file, bring it to the warm storage and start using it. That
and all the working and all these things would be retrieved by way of the Excel sheet or the, like say in the template, or it will be converted into the PDF kind of thing.
Yeah, so we are still working out the information security feature on that. If currently our Excel templates are all copyright protected, in the sense you can't copy paste anything. Okay. If that feature continues, even if I move it outside, because some of them are through macros, some of them are SharePoint features, but it moves out of the SharePoint environment, whether those security features will work is something which we are evaluating still. That is going through the testing currently, and we will have an answer to that. We believe currently at this point of time, most likely it will be a PDF format. That is our current thinking, but we want to see whether we can give the same Excel format, because that is the original format in which it was maintained, and then ensure the IP is protected. That is what we are trying to see.
Right.
I mean, if an online access has to be enabled, that will be easier actually. Instead of taking a printout and giving it, you can always specify the users whom you have to onboard for that link, and you can share the link to them. They can have an online access for a specific period of time, and then you can offboard them in case the printing has to be.
But you know that the house regulator is asking the.
They always want it in a hard copy, is it?
Always want in the pen drive or something like that. They want the complete.
They can they can always have an online access to it. They can access through if you give them the link, they can access through the browser and view the documents actually, if you want to avoid the printing. Pen drive, yeah, then we can retrieve it and give it, and then you can always.
Yeah, but right now, as what Balaji said is, we can give the data. What is trying to figure out is, can we give it only in PDF format, or can we give it in Excel, Word formats also, if the security features can continue once we pull it out of SharePoint.
Yeah,
so that is currently being tested. So once you're able to work that out, we can confirm it. If the security features fail, then it will only be PDF formats.
How would it peer review somebody?
Yeah, we can always share the link. We can always, we can onboard him as an
because
external user.
File is anyway on the cloud.
Cloud,
so
yeah.
You can just add them and they can view.
Onboard the user for specific period. Specific period, yeah.
For 1 month and then.
Yeah.
So one of the security features
Disable
is
the
view
user.
only access. So
and we can only give view only access. There is no edit access for such. Yeah. Then you can offboard him after a specified period.
In few of the cases, peer review board is asking for the soft copy of the documents or maybe the summary, or at times they ask for like what all documents and evidences you have, because again in peer review they have 3 levels: level 1 company, level 2 company, level 1 firm, level 2 firm, level 3 firm. So it depends, like if it is a level 1 firm, they ask for the complete set of the documents. Then in that case, we need to approach you and ask for the pen drive or like what?
No.
Because that is again
see,
the
if they ask
important
for a soft
aspect.
copy, there is no issue at all.
Okay.
Actually, we can give a view only access to that engagement folder. Okay.
No, but the peer review board will not go and review that particular document. Peer review board will ask for the hard copy of these documents, then
But
in
you
that
said
case,
soft copy, so that's
no,
why I
no,
was
soft
wondering.
copy means they ask for either in a pen drive as he mentioned, or in a PDF form, because if we, as you mentioned, that you will share the link, peer review board will not go and check the link. They will say that we don't have so much time where we will go and
Sorry, I
download
didn't
that
understand
particular
the
link.
question. Peer review board cannot take any of your work
Sir,
papers.
while peer review is being completed,
Yeah.
after that report is being submitted by the peer reviewer, after reviewer submission of report by a reviewer, at times peer review board is asking for the evidences,
Yeah.
like documentation, what
No,
all
that
documents
you
we are
reach out
asking
and tell us
for.
what is the information you
Yeah.
need. We'll download it and give it to you.
So in that case, we have to approach you. Then
Correct.
we will download
You can tell,
it
you will
and
tell
then
this is what papers are required. We'll download
Okay.
it and give it to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is only in a defense. 99% I have not come across issues in the peer review reports where auditors have to defend. No, no, I know rigor is increasing, but defense is not really happening. Yeah.
And even the DC in case of disciplinary
Yeah, yeah.
are going on. Like if you are aware, lots of
We
professionals are.
believe, if we believe you use ADOC, you will not get into all those troubles.
See, but you never know when it can
Yeah,
happen.
but data is available always.
Okay, now other than these security features that have come in, there are certain features that are available in the technology. One is, we spoke about all risk, and as we know in accounting, everything is double entry. There is no single entry accounting. So if I have a risk impacting, say, property, plant and equipment, there will be the same risk will correspondingly impact another account balance. It could be bank, if you're talking about payments made. It could be depreciation, if you're talking about adjustments for useful life. It could be repairs and maintenance, if we are talking about wrongful capitalization. So a risk which impacts more than one, it has to impact more than one account balance. And right now, since we are using an Excel sheet, we got it sitting in separate account balances. You say it doesn't apply in one, you have to go to the other one and also say it doesn't apply. So that has to be done manually. So unfortunately, that's the limitation we have in Excel. We could have tried to complicate it using Visual Basic and a lot of other links, but that would have just complicated that Excel sheet and not really provided the benefits. So the tool that we are developing, technology tool, however, will have it automated. I say yes in one place or no in one place, it auto updates in all the GL codes where the same risk is getting transferred. So that's a benefit in the tool. It's a manual feature in ADOC. Attaching tick marks to capture notes. That is a feature that's available in the tool that we are developing. But in ADOC, you can't really do anything. You can put as a comment, you can capture it within the sheet, but tracking it otherwise is not feasible because we are using only the features of Excel. Similarly for review notes. The tool will have a feature to attach review notes, capture the status of those review notes. But here, max you can use is the feature in Excel, which is again putting in comments. As far as sign-offs, again on SharePoint there is no feature for sign-off. What we facilitated, if you had seen in the video, was there is a preparer, reviewer kind of a category. You manually key in the name, put the date of review on it manually. The tool, of course, will capture it electronically. It picks up your system laptop date, and as and when you sign off, it will capture your initials and the date, time of the sign off, and that's how it gets monitored. That feature is only manual again in ADOC. We do have a trial balance feature that we've put in place, but creating it at account balance level, the testing sheets, the lead sheets, directly from the trial balance, it's facilitated clearly in the new tool that we are coming in. It's slightly a kind of a single statement feature as far as ADOC is concerned, because you can use the links that we've already made, you can use the benefit of creating like a pivot and coming to what the overall lead sheet would look like, but that's not at different levels, it's at single lead sheet level that comes up. Another feature is on file check. Benefit of when you have a complete database or a tool that is there, there's an auto check that comes in to make sure have all items been filled up, has all been entered into, are there any gaps that have not been filled in, any documents that have not been signed off. those features the tool will have. However, again, since it's a SharePoint based MS Excel sheet, these validations will have to get done manually. Somebody will have to open each sheet and confirm, have every data been completed, have all review notes been addressed, have all everybody's names and sign off dates been updated. That will have to be done manually. So that is the unfortunate instance, that because it's a simple Excel sheet, we cannot kind of automate the process. We could have put a formula for the date, but the problem would be each time you open the sheet, the date would get updated. So again, that would not have been a viable feature within Excel. So we had to leave that open for manual updates. So try and take you some illustrative content. Kirti, can you? Okay, this is also to show that we have a multi-factor authentication that comes in. So all of you will have to, kind of download the authenticator on your mobile phones. Why do we need all these security features? A lot of client confidential data is maintained. So just to make sure that nobody gets unauthorized access, we had to kind of set up all these features to make sure only the right people can access it. So when we do a user onboarding, we onboard the user with both their email ID and their mobile phone number. So make sure that these are mapped. ये क्या आ गया? फिर से वही डालना पड़ता है. Yeah. So if you look at it, these are all the various engagement files that we've created. You have your Ind AS with control reliance, you have your Ind AS other than control reliance, your accounting standards for companies with and without controls, standards for LLPs with and without controls, you have a non-corporate entities, limited review, tax audit, certificate file. So right now this is the full database. As you get onboarded, depending on what you want, this is the kind of files that will come in for you as users. We are also working on the overall how the look and feel should be of the onboarded site. So what you get may not necessarily look like this, it could look a little different. Can you just go to the Ind AS file? Yeah. So this is the index. You start with the overall planning. There's a guidance on how this file should get used, the client acceptance requirements, understanding entity business. Now if you go into understanding entity and business, Kirti, just go into that. No, you will have templates and checklists, how to understand all of it. Starts from understanding what kind of business they are in, understanding who those charged with governance is, understanding who management are, because there's a difference between TCWG and management, understanding the IT environment, understanding what is happening on cyber security, because this has become a key area of interest for a lot of audit committees and board, especially after a lot of malware attacks have happened recently. So we've got a template saying what should you understand from that perspective as well. Then of course you have understanding account balances. You know, again, if you look at it, we've covered all elements of the balance sheet, all elements of the P&L, key disclosures, because we have items on segmental reporting, we have Q&A on related party transactions. Just go down to employee benefits. You can. So this is just a format for capturing preliminary analytical. Right now, all of that is manual. You'll have to manually key the balances in. But in our tool, once you've imported the trial balance, these will get auto-populated in the tool. But right now, even though you have a Excel tab for trial balance, it doesn't pick it up directly. You'll have to still manually feed it in. Now, how is this different? Now, if you look at it, for all your Ind AS with control reliance, we have two tabs. One is called understanding an account balance. Understanding the account balance has very directed questions that they are asked for a person to evaluate whether something can be required to be understood. For example, you come in here, it asks you on what is the cost to company when somebody is getting hired. And for a lot of these questions, these are a little more direct, not process oriented. And therefore, and each of these questions, to the extent it applies to a process, will get linked to a process. Where additionally these questions, we have identified that there could be a risk involved. You know, when you try and understand this question better, you'll find that we put a risk. Go down to 6, or even here. For example, here, you know, okay, are there employees who are foreign citizens? So that's the question we are asking. And what is the statutory compliance? Especially because there's a matter of PF, at least for when foreign employees are on board. If there is no agreement with the host country, there's a requirement for PF to be paid locally on their global income or all amounts that are being paid to them. So has that been identified? Because a lot of cases we miss out on it. So we put that risk, specifically asking them to understand. Simple reason, a lot of people times I've observed in clients that you have a person of Indian origin but holding a foreign citizenship, foreign passport. And logically they fall under the fact of foreign employees. Though the person has an Indian name, is probably, if you go back to family, his parents are all Indian citizens, but that individual could be a foreign citizen. So we tried to highlight those aspects as well when we brought it. So there are a lot of questions, very directed questions on that account balance specifically. Those questions are mapped to, if you look at it, we've put in the risk, we've identified which all account balances get impacted. Because this risk is impacting trade payables, in addition to employee benefits, are also contingent liabilities. We've also said for each of these accounts, which are the assertions that get impacted. So these are all mapped and cannot be edited. What one can go and update is, if you have, you know, other than the head office, branches, or you're a parent with subsidiaries, this could be associated with one specific entity, in which case you bring that entity in, saying it's not impacting the whole company, whole group, it's impacting just this branch, this division, or this subsidiary. So you can identify it, because then your risk is precise to where it is. And especially if you have, let's say, you know, head office is in Bombay, the subsidiary office is in Kolkata, or you have a branch office sitting in Delhi. So you'll know which team has to do what. If I don't put anything there, nobody knows who has to carry it out. So if I say this applies to Delhi branch, or Delhi division, or Delhi HO, then that team that's working out from here knows exactly which ones they need to check. So we've given that feature also. Of course, right now it's all manual. The tool, once you're on board, saying you have 15 branches, it all drop down comes in saying which branch does this risk apply to. Right now we're not able to bring those features in. It's an Excel sheet, so you put it manually in. We've also gone and captured a question right next to these risks. Now what we've populated here is a host of what we think are possible risks that can come in. For your engagement, considering the size and nature, this risk may or may not be a risk of material misstatement. Now only when it's a risk of material misstatement do you need to carry out procedures. So there's a question that is asked. So again, we are looking at that we need the engagement teams to think. We cannot make this an audit automation. It cannot flow on its own. You have to answer these questions. If you say yes, of course, you go ahead, do your procedures. But if you choose to say no, you need to explain what is it that is making you say this is not a risk. Answer could be as simple when we spoke about foreign citizens, saying there are no foreign citizens in this company and hence this risk does not apply. So that is also unacceptable. But then at least there's a documentation, say I thought about it I've evaluated and then concluded it's not applicable. So we've tried to make it as elaborate on all the risks as possible, and all of them carry these questions. Now this is as far as understanding account balances goes. These are also then mapped into individual processes. So this is like, from hire to retire sort of a process. So you got starting from how do they manage the headcount, and we've given guiding questions. When you try to understand the headcount maintenance, how is they maintained, who's tested for competence and accuracy. So when you sit with the HR person, these are specific questions that you ask them, and the responses you get is what you put down there. Now, what are the possible risks that can come on errors in maintaining the proper headcount? We've got a risk that is identified. Again, it's linked to the relevant account balances, the assertions that come in, and here if you further go to the right, we've also mapped it to appropriate controls. So we've tried to be as elaborate as how the entire control process goes, so that the person testing knows exactly what they need to go ahead and test in this. The benefit we are also trying to provide with this is when we try to be as precise on these controls as possible. If your client does not have this control, this gives you the benefit to issue a management letter saying if this control is better, you can suggest this as an improvement to your clients. So right now, unfortunately I've observed, way back if I go back 25 years ago, management letters were a standard. It used to be a matter of pride saying, okay, I was able to get 3 points for the management letter in this audit. Now when I look at it, everybody's avoiding it. Now the comparison is not how many points I found, how soon did I complete my audit, which means I should have 0 observations. That's the only way I can close the area. So now the comparisons are, I finished it in 2 days. Somebody says I finished it in 1.5 days. So nobody's looking at did I actually find an observation. I think it's time we went back to that. So we are trying to kind of push in saying if you start giving management letters, improvements, there's a value add that the client also sees to it. And that facilitates your further discussions with them on what you want to do, how you want to do, why your costs have gone up, or you want a fee increase. I think the conversation starts becoming easier because they actually see you coming back and giving them something.
Identified. So where do we feed that?
That is just below this risk. There we've given blanks. So you can come and fill them here. So below each of them we put blanks. Though we've tried to be as exhaustive as possible. There are certain industry specific items that could come in. Right now what we've prepared is a very generic. We've not gone into industry specific cases yet. So we feel wherever you need to bring in something that's industry specific, we've left those blanks for you to
But we can't make any changes with the language that has already been put in.
No.
So for the column description of control, description of control, we can change that also or not, because process may be different at different clients.
Currently we have not. What we facilitated is you probably bring the same reference down here and you put the new control that you have there. And when you ask whether this is being done, you say no, control is different, please refer below, and yet below you would have captured the new control. Of course this is in Excel, and the tool will probably be letting you facilitate adding a new control and linking that, because here we could not get that done, because the fear here was if we allow edits, somebody may just delete it and then forget to update it. So we had to make sure the erroneous delete doesn't happen, so we had to restrict it. Because it's Control Z may not work sometimes, you delete and you forget, then now you're wondering how do I bring this back.
Basically this is ideal personality.
Yes. That's why I said, if your clients do not have it, it serves as a management letter point as how they could improve it. So similarly, we've got a lot of processes. I think here we got about 15 or 16 processes that come under this, where you try and cover a lot of marks.
Most of the clients, at least the medium and small clients, they are compiled under the internal controls reporting because of the thresholds which are there. Their documented controls will be actually very poor. They will simply say CFO approves it. CFO approving is not a control. You know how the CFO approves. He will be talking to you and signing a check. You don't even know what control is exercising. So we are trying to bring in a control activity. So for the client to replicate this will become very, very relevant and important to them. When you try to bring in the client's control, very likely it will not be a control, or the control would not have been, at least in description, would not have been designed appropriately. It will fail the design test itself. So our thinking is the controls which we have defined should apply in 90-95% of the cases. If it doesn't apply, similar detailed control should be there with the client. with whatever modifications are required. And if you see the control description, can we move to any control description? So we have only said account stream prepare. We have not said who. That who is going to come in the next. Go to the previous column.
Yeah, it comes to next.
Where?
Yeah. After control frequency, control owner.
Yeah. So here the control owner name will come. So the description there is generic, whereas here it becomes very specific. So therefore your description can be as generic, because tomorrow the employee may change. You can't say X is doing it. Tomorrow it may be Y. So therefore we are trying to give a generic name. This can keep changing. Your control doesn't change. Control is the same. So we have thought through a lot of things in terms of how this has to be designed, and we have tried to bring it as generic as possible so that you don't feel the necessity to change things. That is our whole idea. You may be compelled to change where the client has a completely different process. That may happen. We don't deny that. But what we have given, we believe, is very, very comprehensive from a design perspective. See, today advantage we have is NAFRA has not understood controls fully. They are not getting into details on controls. They are talking of controls at a very high level. But tomorrow if they become like PCOB, where they understand controls, 90% of our audits will collapse. Pardon?
It will come to that.
No, but so therefore I am saying we should better prepare for that, no?
Yeah.
That is our whole attempt. See, today they are not fully focusing on controls because they are finding bigger issues, easier issues to pick up and turn. Exactly. So once they get trained, educated, this will become a huge area of problem for us. Yeah. Controls is going to be the biggest area of problem for us.
Today our ICFR report doesn't talk about any qualification.
Yeah.
Even in our revenue samples, we can have cut-off issues. We can recommend that some of our cut-off samples were rectified by the management before the finalizing revenue. But we don't mention it in our ICFR.
You don't even evaluate the magnitude of errors is possible, because there you are looking at potential.
Yeah.
You are not looking at the actual errors.
As soon as we have any issue in our cut-off samples, ICFR report should have that qualification.
Yeah.
Similarly for inventory valuations.
Very simple thing. Every client we curse on their financial closing process. We say the client doesn't give the information, they're terrible, so many mistakes, everything. But no report is qualified on controls. You are already cursing him on controls, but you are giving a clean report. So all of this will become an issue.
Yeah. Kirti, you can go to another pack. You can close this. Hey, not Purani. Hopefully it will open, or again. Ane, khul gaya. Not that. Go to AS company without controls. Yes. Similarly, you can just go to employee benefits. So here, since it's not control reliance, there are little more detailed substantive procedures that we've given to further. Again, this is on the headcount matter. So since it's non-control reliance, there's no control description, but there's detailed procedures that need to be carried out as far as substantive procedures is concerned. So that is the key difference that we've done, where it's control reliance, there's more focus on the control descriptions and activities. Where there's non-control reliance, there's more detailed substantive procedures. Just close this tab. Go back to the portal, your portal pe aake, go back to the Ind-AS file, the first one. You could just show your trial balance and sampling, the audit planning document. Because it was a kind of quick check in the video, so perhaps if you want to see, we have two. One is monetary unit sampling, where the materiality number identified has a role to play in the sample selection, including whether it's control reliance or not, and what the level of risk is, whether it's significant or other than significant. We put in a formula, so all these factors go in trying to work out what would be an appropriate sample size. And then once you put in the journal entry wise details below it, it ends up selecting the samples that you want. So we try to automate how much ever this is possible. Similarly on random. Only thing with random is because it's formula generated, each time you open the sheet, the random number changes. So we try to make a report the first time it is run, and that report stays stagnant. So hopefully you can use that as reference, because otherwise the reviewer, whether it's manager or partner, may get confused as to why the samples are different. Yeah, so the output comes here as a report when this is done the first time around. So in one way, what we've tried to do a little differently, I think you can just come down. Okay, we put in kind of 5 questions. The requirement under controls is first, you're supposed to evaluate design. If the design is done correctly, then you go out and do an implementation check. Implementation is again as of a date, as of a time, at a point in time, evaluation whether the control is working. If you conclude it's implemented correctly, then you plan on the operating effectiveness, which is whether this control is working as competently over the period of time or intended period of reliance. So when you look at that, how do you evaluate whether the control is designed for the risk it's supposed to meet? So we kind of put 5 questions. As you address these questions, it will help you evaluate and conclude whether the control is designed appropriately or not. And then of course, as per the guidance note, there are a list of questions below, and how do you evaluate the implementation or evaluation of the overall control. So we've got all those questions, you just need to answer against each of it for whichever control this is being tested for. Here again we've given a guidance on how this template has to be used. Again, it's a little restrictive because we're using pure Excel and linking and filters and all for the mapping purposes. The tool we are developing will have a kind of an API kind of setup where you can open it. It comes as an add-in within your Excel sheet, if I'm not mistaken, and you can use that add-in to import the client's trial balance into the format and map it all. Here currently that feature is not there. So again we've linked it. This filter gives you onto the note line. So you bring in the client's trial balance here and you start mapping it as to where it should be targeted. So that kind of happens as a grouping, and then you can map it all the way right up to the FS line items, which are currently mapped with the Schedule 3 requirements. So you'll be able to confirm whether these totals are mapped with and agreeing with the draft financials given, which gives you a comfort whether the groupings done by management and the groupings considered by you are consistent or not. And that kind of becomes a quick check whether all numbers have correctly come in or not, or are there any adjustments recorded directly in the Excel sheet which you are not aware of. So this serves as a quick check in that manner. We've also facilitated within the Excel sheets to capture any specific correction entries or audit entries as we call. Anything that's come up, you put that up here, this will get updated into the trial balance. You also have next to it the GJs or grouping journal entries where amounts are getting reclassified. Your receivables includes debits and credit balance because the customer accounts are that way. You reclassify the credit balances separately. So how do you get it? We post an entry here that gets updated within the trial balance that is there. And yes, as I said, we use the feature of pivot tables to kind of create a testing sheet. So once all of these are filled up, you can create it. But the way it is set up, it creates testing sheets across all account balances. You will have to copy paste it into the relevant lead sheets in the relevant area later on. Again, that will get automated in the tool. For relevant areas, the lead sheets will get updated. So again here we've got assessing risk of fraud, various templates that we discussed on what kind of questions you need to do, how do you need to analyze when you look at revenue, when you look at management override of control, what kind of discussions should you have with the engagement team, what discussions should you have with management, what discussions with those charged with governance. So there are a lot of templates and kind of questions and guidances on what should you do and format in which you can capture the information. Just go to audit planning, otherwise, yeah, here, or you can go to this also. So again, these are all the checklists that are there. You got your 143, 1 and 3, including 11 checklists for both standalone and consolidated, your Caro 2020 checklist. So Auditing standard wise, it's consistent. I think the institute also had come out with a publication for guidance on checklist for compliance with auditing standards. So we've added some more points, but principally in line with that. So we've got a very detailed EQCR checklist on what needs to be done by the EQCR. So this is kind of a mix of guidance and checklist. So we told them what they need to do, and the checklist portion is yes, I've done it, or not, I've not done it. So that becomes the cross check for the EQCR. Yeah, so we again have a Ind AS checklist on presentation and disclosure only, not measurement and recognition. That is individually needs to be checked separately, but this is more on the presentation disclosure requirements. So for going concern, both at standalone and consolidated, how do you evaluate, what do you need to do? There are certain guidances, little bit of yes, no to see whether you complied with what is required. So we try to see as much as possible to give the kind of a guidance or a question so that anybody who has to do it has a fair idea what they need to do. Similarly, you can open limited review. Go to understanding account balance. Go to property, plant and equipment. So here also we try to give, of course, understanding internal controls, the way process we've seen kind of remains similar. Your analytical review also is not very different except for some new columns. You can open this review procedures. So what we also try to develop, as I said, most of it is manually to be updated. We try to give what are the minimum procedures one needs to do as part of a review. You get the asset register, you reconcile it to the GL, you look whether the additions totals are matching, you work out and see whether depreciation is okay, has there been any change, has the movement been in line with the capital budget. So all these are what kind of inquiries you need to do, what do you need to understand. There's a kind of a minimum procedure. And then at the end we've got any additional procedures for your engagement entity you want to fill up. You can add those additional procedures if you want. But at least this gives that minimum what needs to get done is kind of done, including for how do you check for depreciation. So this will be kind of built. You also have go to the limited review checklist. Okay, we've not brought in here. Okay, that must be sitting outside then, not coming in. But there also you try to cover from client acceptance right out to reporting, including SEBI LODR compliance overall like a method of checklist. Yeah. You can look at tax audit. There also go to tax audit checklist, testing form 3CD. Tax audit checklist. Yeah. So here also we try to give as much guidance as possible and capture to make sure that everything is done how it needs to be done. Though slightly in progress, we are also trying to work out work paper templates in which a lot of this data can be captured by the teams. But currently there's a lot of guidance. We've also given a cross reference to the institute's guidance note or wherever necessary to ICDS para reference so that why we've asked you to do this or how we are looking at this also with certain guidances. Yeah, this should be okay. Thanks, Kit. If you can go back to the presentation. Yeah. Balaji, you wanted to say a few words before I play the slide?
So we are calling these first impressions. We are not calling it feedback, because feedback means people should have spent more time, experienced the whole of the tool, which they have not had the time. That is the reality. But what did they think? Because we had 2-3 things which we wanted to ask the firms. First is, what do you think about the content which is there? Okay? And what benefit do you feel as a user from this particular content? What is the ease of use of this content? Is it relevant to you? Is it easy to use? These are the feedbacks which we wanted. And these feedbacks have honestly been provided by the audit firms themselves. We never went to the firms. They recorded themselves and they shared it with us. Some of my team members have not even seen these feedbacks because we got them just yesterday sort of thing. So these are genuinely first impressions, and as we move along, maybe I'll jump the gun and tell straight away. We are doing discuss the pricing also, no? Isn't it?
Yeah, that's there after this.
Yeah. So we want more people to give us the feedback, because as I told, we believe that this tool can become more powerful with more feedback coming from the users. What practical things which you face is this tool not addressing, we'll try to see what best can be done in that. That is our whole idea. So we want more firms to participate in this particular process so that we get more feedback. That is our idea. But these are first impressions. Please don't take it as feedback, because they would have spoken nicely. Take it with a pinch of salt, because you have to use it, experience it to see how relevant or how correct that particular first impression is.
Hi, I'm Ramlan Venkat from J & Associates. I work as a senior audit executive here. First off, I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to contribute my insights to help improve the ADOC software. I also want to commend the team for developing such an innovative and promising software solution. During the testing process, I had the opportunity to experience its various features and functionalities. I would like to delve into some specific observations and suggestions based on my user experience. The software's interface and features convey information in a clear and organized manner, and navigating through the software and understanding the engagement file is easy. The interface elements like drop-down lists, menus, buttons are self-explanatory. The performance of the software is very quick and responsive, where navigation as well as opening files loaded promptly. And we did not experience any cases of lags, crashes, or unresponsive files. The software's error handling capabilities was on point, and the pop-up error message was clear and indicative enough to recover smoothly. The software had all the required features to fulfill its intended purposes, although we noted a few minor inconsistencies. The logical workflow, right from general guidance to client acceptance, continuance, to understanding the business, its environment, understanding account balances, assessing risk of frauds, designing documentation and testing procedures for substantive testing, TOCs, etc. were very streamlined, and it gave a clearer macro picture of the entire audit. Since the software supports real-time synchronizations, changes made in one system is easily and quickly reflected in other connected systems. If this software integrates with the present systems, this would help in seamless data exchange, as it provides a well-documented and robust interface. It would streamline the workflow and also allow users to access relevant information or functionalities in a cohesive manner, and would enhance productivity. Overall, the intuitive interface, coupled with its powerful features, made it a pleasure to work with. I believe that this software has the potential to greatly benefit users in streamlining their workflow and achieving their goals.
Hi, I am Arun from J & Associates. I work as an audit manager. I had an opportunity to test and evaluate the features and functionalities of the ADOC tool. I am genuinely impressed by its outstanding performance and the immense value it brings to our profession. First and foremost, I want to appreciate your team's dedication and expertise in crafting such a comprehensive and user-friendly audit tool. The thoughtful design and the functionality reflect a deeper understanding of the challenges being faced by small and mid-sized firms, and your solution effectively addresses these challenges, streamlining the audit process and maximizing efficiency. Throughout my testing process, I was consistently impressed by its tool's interface, which allowed for seamless navigation and ease of use. The logical features, including client acceptance, understanding the entity and its environment, risk assessment, planning, all the way till the audit reporting, and the well-organized layout contributed to an enhanced user experience. It is evident that greater care has been taken to ensure that the auditors can effectively utilize this tool regardless of their level of technical expertise. While the documentation covers majority and all the possible risks across each cycle, it is not restricting the user from adding the additional risk, which will not hinder the logical thinking of the audit team. The comprehensive documentation and the user guides provided would greatly benefit users of the audit tool. The detailed instructions have been given in most of the papers will help fully leverage the tool's capabilities and maximize its potential benefits. One of the standout features of the audit tool is its robustness and reliability. In conclusion, I want to express my sincere appreciation for the opportunity to test and evaluate the exceptional audit tool. The level of innovation, attention to detail, and user-centric approach that went into the development are truly praiseworthy. I am confident that this tool will revolutionize the audit profession, empowering auditors to deliver even higher standards of accuracy, efficiency, and value to their clients.
Hi, I'm Aradhana Ashok, partner in J & Associates.
we're a mid-sized firm of 150 employees, and about 1/3 of our employees are focused on delivering audit. We seek to grow as an audit firm, with audit being one of our core practice areas. With this in perspective, the audit professionals today are faced with many challenges: higher responsibility, higher accountability, and higher risks. As an audit signing partner, it becomes all the more important for someone like me to ensure that the audit procedures we do, the audit methodologies we follow, actually document and test all these risks that we're talking about. Does it flow in the right place in the audit planning? Does it flow through for the work papers? Does it flow through in the audit work paper conclusions? And hence, it would directly impact the audit opinion. It is also to be noted that the team of members who work on this audits are generally of varied degrees of experience. The exposures they have are across various industries and a bit diverse in nature. There is also the audit profession is also today facing a lot of attrition, and hence there is a need for training people, upskilling people, ensuring that they are constantly updated with all the changes that comes out in the regulatory environment, technical, various other regulations, and it is done in a timely fashion. So with this in mind, JA as a firm has been reviewing various tools to see how best we can get to this point. Of late, we have had the opportunity to review ADOC. ADAT, I understand, is going to come at a later point in time, but we had the opportunity to, ADOC, which is the precursor, we had an opportunity as a team to review that. As an audit signing partner and from all the perspectives we discussed, I was very happy with my initial review of that. I personally went through the content. The content itself is amazing. It's a wealth of information, is a wealth of guidance for the audit teams to sort of approach the audit in a structured and a step-by-step fashion. It also takes care of some amount of the training, some amount of the risk coverage and other things that we talked about. I'm also happy to note that maybe I can put even a fresher on a job and expect a certain amount of minimum audit quality to come out of something like this. So we are very excited to look at the final tool when it comes out, and we are, the team that is developed this is eminent bunch of professionals who are, I'm sure, going to keep updating the product, updating the requirements on the regulatory front, and giving us those timely assistance to take this forward. I can't wait to review the actual tool itself. Thank you.
Hi all. I would take an opportunity to thank Balaji and team for bringing such a wonderful audit tool which helps the auditor to do the comprehensive audit in a simple manner. It is a cloud-based software and a simple Excel tool which has all the checklist for references. Further, all the audit documents is available under a single roof, which helps for the audit trail and keeps the track and record of the same. Thanks for the team for such a wonderful.
The audit documentation tool is a pool of content which helps the auditor to perform the audit from the planning stage to the reporting stage effectively. Training to use this tool is very easy, as the templates are in the form of MS Excel and it comes along with the detailed instruction manual. It has sampling templates, comprehensive checklist, which helps the auditors to document their work consistently and reduces the review time. Only access is given to the authorized users, makes it secure and confidential.
First of all, heartily congratulations to Mr. Balaji and his entire team for successfully launching the much awaited audit tool. It comprises of robust systems and process inbuilt which will facilitate the statutory audit documentation in a more efficient and complete manner. The documentation comprises of planning, execution and conclusion, which in turn includes various checklists, TOC, materiality, substantive testing, guidance, observations and conclusion reporting, and much more features which will ensure the completeness of the audit documentation in a more organized way. To summarize, it will ensure that the large, medium size audit documentation is more efficient and organizedly done to ensure that the complete workflow of the audit is taken care in one single tool. Thank you for the opportunity to share the experience and wishing the entire team a flourishing success.
Happy evening. As a limited period, we have been using the ADOC audit software. I think the entire life cycle of an audit is being captured very well in the software. I think it serves all the purposes. Take a QRB review, or it can be NAFRA, or it can be peer reviews. It's well planned software. Even untrained resources can use this and learn to do the audit very well, because every step-by-step definitions are given, how to do audit is given, how to identify risks have been. The moment they start answering all those questions, I think it's very clear that very well layout plan is there in the software. Plus initially there is a possibility that we think it might take quite a bit of a time, but however the fruits will start reaping in the next years. That planning time will be substantially less because all the things are documented. I think very well planned software. I think thumbs up.
I'm working with Lothan but as an article assistant. I got a chance to work on a tool named ADOC, which is prepared by True and Fair Professional Networks. So I worked on a module called trial balance module, which will help us to prepare trial balance very easily. That it will help us to categorize the trial balance items by putting subcategory only. Then there is a sheet called testing sheet, which will give a summarized comparison between previous year and current year balances, which will help us to prepare the lead sheet. But it will be more useful when these balances is auto-populated into substantive testing sheets. After completing this, we will come to substantive testing. There I worked on a module called sampling module, which will help us to select samples in two methods, that is MUS and random sampling method. So in this module, they have given proper instructions which will help everyone to select sample easily by using this module. And one more thing I found in this module very useful is it will throw up an error when there is a mismatch between the list of items which we put, total of the list of items which we put, and the population total which we put in the initial stage of this module. And this will help us to find the mistakes which we did, and we can correct it in the initial stage only. After completing substantive testing and analytical procedures, we will come to the conclusion of the audit. At the time, we will get a module called conclusion module, which will be giving a summarized view of total corrected mistakes and total corrected misstatements and total uncorrected misstatements, which will help us to compare the total uncorrected misstatements and the materiality, and it will help us to take the necessary actions for further audit conclusions. Thank you.
I'm Bhagishri MD, working with Lodha but as a senior manager. When I worked on ADOC software, I found it's a very valuable tool for end-to-end documentation of audit procedure. It gives clear and informative checklist from the planning to reporting. It has checklists for planning the audit, independence of the auditor, understanding the entity and its environment, other auditing procedures like test of control, substantive test, and reporting. When I talk about understanding the accounting balances, which gives the interim balances, extrapolated balances, which helps us to identify the unusual movement in the balances and to perform our analytical audit procedures and plan our audit tests. It gives comprehensive checklist for the risk identified throughout the audit period. I also found checklist on standard on audit and checklist on financial statement, which is prepared on an in-days basis. I suggest the developer to develop the checklist on accounting standard and checklist on the financial statement, which is prepared on an AS basis, because normally small and medium companies will follow AS financial statements. It gives the checklist and documentation for not only standalone financials, and it's for also for the consolidated financials. That I found very useful.
Hi, I'm Mangala Rao, partner Lodha and Bhatt. As one of the audit partners in Lodha and Bhatt, I am always looking at how do we improve audit quality, how do we ensure that we've actually identified all risks of material misstatement, identify appropriate procedures, and then ensure that the reporting, quality checks, conclusion is all appropriate, how to deliver quality audit. And when we think through all this, we are looking for a robust and good planning, execution, and reporting tool, which makes life easier as well as guides us well through the whole process. I find on a quick review of ADOC that it does seem to address that need that we have. If you look at the words like AQMM, ISQM that sound scarier these days, having good planning and ensuring good documentation will always help us be in compliance with those requirements. I think ADOC can help a long way in that. What did I like particularly about ADOC? At a partner level, the fact that it addresses the need to have detailed discussions with those charged with governance. It helps us look at what could be the possible fraud risks, how is the management identifying them and mitigating them, what audit procedures should we do to ensure that the fraud risks are mitigated. Now all of this seemed very important and refreshing. I would suggest that all experienced and seasoned auditors should also look at ADOC once to understand the guidance that it provides and how it helps us as a ready reckoner throughout the audit. So these are the few thoughts that I had on ADOC. Thank you to all at True and Fair Professional Networks for letting us know about ADOC. I have only one suggestion here, and that would be that since many of us are continuing to work on small and medium-sized companies, there should be some feature that helps us tailor the audit programs and the audit in general to suit those companies also. Other than that, I think the attention to detail across all the audit planning, reporting, planning through to reporting is good, and I wish ADOC all the best.
Yeah, so with regard to the last suggestion, I'll just clarify quickly. Mangala only experienced the Ind AS control reliance pack. She didn't see the other packs which are coming up with, because we wanted feedback for this event, therefore we are rushing her. We gave her the biggest of the packs and said, you look at this and give your feedback. Of course, we will, when the other packs roll out, we will engage more firms and more get more feedback. But don't worry, for small medium enterprises, there will be a separate pack under AS, also under Ind AS, which can be used.
Thanks. Can we go back to the presentation? So what next? We are looking at coming out with ADAT by end of this calendar year. We are looking at it being in compliant for international as well, because Ind AS, IFRS, there are a few gaps. IFRS, there have been amendments. We have not incorporated it within Ind AS. So we will try and capture that as well and make it available for IFRS reporting, US GAAP reporting. If any of you have group reporting requirements, that also come in. We are looking at bringing in elements of data analytics and machine learning. Again, this is trying to use a little bit of AI and other aspects to be more explorative, so help you identify where the exceptions could lie. So your testing is focused more on exceptions. We are also looking at trying to do it specific to account balances, not making it generic, giving dashboards, but trying to figure out what kind of insights that analytics can actually do. What we're also trying to do is we've developed and are working on developing an audit methodology manual, which will kind of probably be available by end of the financial year, by March, which is going to be consistent with the features that we are building within ADAT as a tool as well. So one of the requirements under AQMM, if people have gone through, is a requirement to have a detailed audit manual, a requirement to have templates, standard formats, guidances that are made available to all staff. So we're looking at getting those two also, which will be consistent with how we've developed these guidances. So these will try and cover how to actually practically apply all of these. So that's going to come in as our next by March 24 is our date. Hopefully we'll be able to achieve it. So what is the pricing? I know we've said in the video that how we've gone about coming to the pricing. We've looked at the price of Azure, the price of maintenance, the cost of our content that we've developed. So this is what is the kind of the fee structure we are giving. Balaji, you want to just put in some thoughts on the fee structure?
So in the fee structure, we believe commercials of true and fair comes only in this line. Okay, other lines are practically recoveries of various costs which we are incurring. Okay, for example, this 3 lakhs fee can come down based on the number of users which subscribe, number of audit firms which subscribe, because we don't know what we expect in the marketplace. So today when I go to an investor to raise funds, he is saying, okay, how many audit firms will subscribe to you? I say, I don't know. We are very convinced about the product, but how does the audit firm side look at it? We don't know. So therefore we said we don't know the number. So that is the unpredictability for me. So if the number of subscribers increase, this number will keep coming down. Okay, that's the first point. Second point is we have tried to stagger the fees into 2 models. One is an annual fee and one is a monthly fee, because some firms came back and said, so Balaji, we are doing a lot of internal audits also. But September month, we use our internal audit staff also to do statutory audit because the deadline is there. Okay. So how do we pay for internal audit person? Because that person is going to work with me only for 1 month in statutory audit. After that, he will go off to internal audit. So we said, okay, then for those people, you go through monthly fees. You don't take annual fee. So then you pay only 1,800 or whatever level you are in, and that's all. You don't pay the 18,000. So we have tried to bring in some flexibility on the fees for audit firms to look at in terms of what they want to do. And the bigger thing what we are looking to do is, my firm belief is adoption of ADOC should be encouraged by the partners but demanded by the staff. That is my belief. Okay. Keeping that belief in mind, what we are looking to do is we want to offer, this is a team discussion which we have had and we all agreed, is that we will offer ADOC free of cost for first 30 days. You can onboard up to 12 users and perform up to 3 engagements in the 30 days. Okay. This is for you to experience ADOC before you fully subscribe to it, so that it gives you a reasonable time to understand, and some number of people are also getting to understand what is there in ADOC. Then after that you get into a subscription sort of a model. That's what we are looking to offer, and this is not an offer for first come first served basis. Any audit firm, whoever is onboarding with us, want to onboard with us, we will give this 1 month free continuously. That means you come to me in January and say that I want to use ADOC, but I want to test it once, I will give you 30 days free. If you come to me in July, I will say 30 days free from July. So the 30 days is always available. It's not that it is available only for the first 3 months. It is available in the journey of true and fair, so long as true and fair survives. Okay, that is what we are looking to commit ourselves to.
So before we conclude, any questions, any clarifications on ADOCs that you may have, please feel to ask. No.
We can do a detailed demo to each of the firms, because you are one person representing today. You may want multiple partners to participate and take a decision. Engage with us, we will schedule a demo. The most time we can see a virtual demo unless we have 4 or 5 firms in one city asking for it. In Delhi, let's say 4 or 5 firms ask, then we will come from Delhi and now test it.
Thanks, Jaideep. Thanks, Balaji. That was comprehensively corroborated. So, Balaji, we trust. ADOC does take care of the concerns. Yeah, we trust. Thank you. When Jaideep was showing these slides, what also clicked is we were talking about how engagement audit execution is supported, and how audit engagements are taken care of. But what I also felt was, with the bare minimum questions or the risks that needs to be addressed, with the bare minimum procedures that needs to be done, what comes next is what more, what new and what different, because no two people think alike, and we will be surprised by the kind of answers that you would get from your own engagement teams who are working on different engagements. That will help you also bring in the synergy of thoughts and new procedures. And eventually, it will only further enhance the audit quality which is being executed by the firm. So, through that, True and Fair is trying to move you from audit, which is all you do is tick, to audit, which is not only all you do is think, but also document. Moving on with the next now. We are very grateful to all the participants and people who have helped us test ADOC, and we would like to felicitate and show our, thanks to them. So I will call upon the names of the firms representatives. Kindly please come and collect the certificates. May I call upon Dr. Ashok Lodha, please, would you help us present the certs? First is JAA and Associates from Bengaluru. Thank you for all the efforts. Yeah, please. Mr. Singh as well. Thank you, Aradhana. Lodha and Bhatt. Aradhana. Surprise! Lodha and Bhatt, Bengaluru. Thank you, thank you. From Guru and Jana, Bengaluru. Thank you. TR Chadda and Co LLP, Delhi. Thank you. Kirtani and Pandit, Delhi. Kirtani and Pandit? Okay. Okay. Khandelwal and Jain, please. Thank you. As a token, thank you. As a token of our gratitude for your valuable time spent today, sir, we would like to present a small memento. Yeah, that is why we are just giving a small memento, sir. Just, it was a very valuable time spent with you. Can I request Kirti and Ashish to please come and hand over the memento, sir? Thank you so much, sir. Now, Alpa, before I call Alpa, thank you all for your warm cooperation. It's been an entertaining and an engaging day. Alpa, I request you to please do your vote of thanks and conclude the show. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of our entire True and Fair team, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Dr. Ashok Haldia and CA Harinderjit Singh. And I would also extend our thanks to our panelists who gave their views during the discussion. I'll not take much time. I'll just bring out few key points which we learned from the discussion, like panelist discussion, and which our eminent guest speakers spoke about. Dr. Ashok rightly mentioned about our current challenge about the artificial intelligence which our professions are facing, and there is a fear that artificial intelligence may replace the auditors, but that he himself and the panelists also said that no, that's not true. That fear is not right, because artificial intelligence cannot replace us. It doesn't have the professional skepticism which we have. So we should not be worried. However, we should be mindful of the thing that we should be adaptive. We should adopt the technology. So we should see that, okay, how artificial intelligence can help us in uplift our quality in performing the audit. So rather fearing artificial intelligence, let's work with that. Let's change our mindset and move forward. Similarly, Harinderjit sir said about NAFRA's role, where they are looking at the review of the engagement right from the acceptance till the concluding till the archival of the file, and the prime focus of NAFRA is looking at the compliance with the auditing standard. And hence our aim should be that our documentation, like we are doing audit as per the auditing standard, however maybe we are lacking in documentation, so our effort should be there in that direction, that our documentation should speak what we have done which is in compliance with the auditing standard. One golden rule which he mentioned is that no documentation means no work done, because regulator or inspector, they are looking at what we have done. Documentation is the only thing which we can demonstrate what procedures we have performed. So with that intention, this ADOC is working in that direction. We will be bringing edit tool, but ADOC is definitely one step in that direction. And in panel discussion, the one key challenge came up with respect to small and medium firm is that retention of the talent and grooming of the talent. For that, major thing is giving training to the staff. The ADOC is that tool which will help in grooming, giving on the job training to the staff, and also documentation. And as Mr. Singh rightly pointed out, when he looked at the document, and in this today's his discussion, he mentioned that ADIT is a mini ERP of audit. I feel that itself talks a lot about the product which we have launched today. With this, we'll give a round of applause and thanks to all the participants who made the event memorable one. And finally, I would like to thank all of you who are present here for making time for us, and also helping us to make this event a grand success. Looking forward working with you, and thanks to one and all. Thank you.
We have arranged a small high tea for all of you, so please do take the refreshment before you make a move. Balaji, anything else that I missed? Thank you so much.